It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. Shoshana Weissmann is here from the Sloth Committee and ourstreet.org. Nicholas De Leon from Consumer Reports and our futurist Amy Webb. We will, of course, talk about the upcoming election. How much did tech influence the kind of uncertainty of this election? Amy talks about embracing uncertainty with regard to AI as well as everything else. A new AI website to help you vote. We'll talk about why Alexa's AI brain is stuck in the lab and Chinese sanctions hitting a U.S. drone maker. That and a whole lot more coming up. TWiT is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 1004, recorded November 3rd, 2024. Embrace uncertainty. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech, the show we cover the week's tech news. Oh, we have a good panel today. We've been kind of on a roll lately. Amy Webb is back, not just back on the panel, but back from a several hundred mile bicycle ride through Spain. Hi, Amy.
Hey, Leo. How are you?
And happy birthday. When's your birthday?
It was a couple weeks ago.
Okay. You were celebrating. All
Yep.
right. Well, happy birthday to you, Amy.
Thank
Amy's
you.
the author of many great books, including, is this still your latest? I know you were working on one.
Yeah,
Genesis Machine?
Yeah, Brian said if I start another one, he was going to divorce me. Yeah, I don't think he's actually going to divorce me, but, you know, there's a...
So you're doing
it puts a strain on a marriage, writing a book
wait
and
until he's
running
asleep.
a company.
Yeah,
exactly.
I know. CEO of the Future Today Institute. And this is still a very current, timely book, The Genesis Machine, about the biotech, synthetic biology, the biotech revolution that is happening right now. And AI has a lot to do with this, I know.
AI has a lot to do with that. And interestingly enough, the previous book, the Big Nine, so much of what I wrote about almost 8 years ago has come true.
Yeah.
That book has gone into another printing and has started selling out again. So
yeah, because it's about AI, how the tech titans and their thinking machines could warp humanity.
Yep.
And the big nine. Would you say, let's say it's still IBM, Alibaba, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, and Google? Are those all still?
I would say so because, I got some criticism that NVIDIA wasn't in there, and
back
some of the
then, maybe not.
But it's because the future of AI is really not just about the chips or the code. It's also it's hyperscalers. So at the moment, you still need the cloud to make all of this work. Right. Which is why those companies, I think, are still relevant. Makes
perfect sense. Also with us from Consumer Reports, our highly regarded Consumer Reports senior electronics reporter, Nicholas De Leon. It's good to see you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Leo. How are you?
You moved from New York to the big, great Pacific or Southwest. It's not the Pacific Southwest. Yeah.
Born and raised in New York, basically New York City, and then moved out here to near Tucson. I'm like 30 minutes north of downtown.
You've gone completely native because you're wearing an Indian blanket jacket. You got the howling wolf.
I really like it down here. I mean, I would have to be paid an enormous amount of money to move back to New York again. It's great. Today's a little rainy, unfortunately, but otherwise I love the people. I like the architecture. I love the weather, obviously. It is just a very nice place.
I like it that you found your bliss, Nicholas.
So far, so good. So.
Yeah.
But Nicholas, if you come back to New York, you can jaywalk and shoplift. And that's okay now. You're not going to get...
New York following in San Francisco's footsteps for some reason.
That's another thing. None of the stores here, none of the deodorants are locked off. Everything's open. Everything's normal where I live. It's pretty.
In my opinion, if somebody wants to shoplift some deodorant, you should probably let them. I'm just thinking. Shoshana Weissmann is also here. R Street. She's head of digital media at ourstreet.org and, of course, chairman of the Sloth Committee, which explains the giant sloth looking over her left shoulder. Don't move an inch. Hi, Senator Shoshana.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you.
Likewise.
We are in the midst of an interesting election here in the U.S. We have many listeners outside the U.S. who are probably watching with equal interest and a little bit less agita because I think I can't wait for this to be over. Amy, is it always like this? I don't remember it being like this before. Are presidential elections always so high stakes?
I think a couple of things are happening. It certainly feels more like everything related to politics lately is high stakes, and that's most likely Shoshana probably has more deep insights into this, but my assumption would be that it has more to do with the amplification and constant stream of tweets and snaps and texts and everything else that's happening. You also have performative politicians. I'm sure by this point everybody is aware of the choice that one of the candidates for the highest office in the free world made with a microphone that they were in front of, and
that was wild. I know what
wild.
You're talking about. I just saw that this morning on TikTok.
Yep.
Whoa.
So I think when you have performative acts, that makes everything feel much more urgent. And of course, you've got there's a lot that's happened with the tech sector and prominent CEOs who have weighed in ways that we haven't seen before. So I don't know that this particular election is any more consequential than the two previous, but it definitely feels like this is a momentous time.
It does feel that way, but I just wonder, maybe in 1940, when Roosevelt was going for the third term, or 1860 when it was we were approaching Civil War and Lincoln was running. I mean, I imagine there have been other times when presidential politics has been this weighty. Shoshana, you're nodding. Do you study history? Because I feel like a historian needs to answer this question.
I know what you mean. No, I know the history of specific regulations. Otherwise, I'm not as into history as you might think. But it's funny. I feel like 2016 and 2020 felt more intense to me. But I think I personally really worked hard to tune out of this election because nothing was going to do well for me stressing out about it. There's nothing I can control.
Yeah, right.
So I've tried to chill out about it, but I wondered too what people felt like in the past about it at other critical points in history. I've often wondered how it felt, and I always try to temper myself by thinking back to that kind of stuff. But
yes.
I'm just not sure that we have enough historical record of what people were thinking. Were people farming their land and thinking, "Oh my gosh, this election is so bad. I hate this
Lincoln
so much.
wins, I'm out of here. I'm going to Canada." Yeah.
Right. You kind of wonder.
I think actually there were people in the South that were thinking that, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Even when I watch old movies on Turner Classics, sometimes you get a little hint of it. There was one I was just watching that I think had to deal with one of the Roosevelt elections, and it was just kind of funny to think about that kind of stuff,
Nicholas De Leon, you've chosen such a different community, and one of the things I notice in this election is that people are very much influenced by their communities, the communities that they're in. There are, pockets, but generally, if you're in a blue state, you're in a blue state. If you're in a red state, you're a red state. And there seems to be consensus in that community. Did you notice a shift moving from the very blue New York to somewhat purple Arizona?
Yeah, I think purple's a good way to describe, at least where I am in Arizona. Again, I'm about 30 minutes north of Tucson. You see a good split of the signs, the Trump signs, the Harris signs. I do find some of and I don't know if these signs are elsewhere. I see Trump signs around here that says, it literally boils down to Trump good, Kamala bad, that level of discourse.
Right.
And I don't know how effective these things are. I don't know. I get so many things in the mail, so many snail mail, oh, this guy's a jerk. This person's a saint. I'm what is the point of this? This seems very silly to me. A lot of the kind of the structure around this. What I find,
you wonder how effective it is.
Yeah.
Because if you're in one camp or the other, are you going to be swayed because you got a mailer saying your person is a loser?
And to me, like the strangest ones are not from the campaigns or the candidates. They're from like the PACs from outside of them. Like I got something in the mail the other day that was something like, "Oh, we noticed you haven't voted. It would be a shame if you didn't exercise your right to vote. When we follow up next week, we hope to see that you filed your ballot." And I'm like, this language is really like threatening.
It would be a shame if we should learn you have not voted.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't know who this is helping. Like, both sides are accusing the other side of like rhetoric and yada yada, and I'm like,
you've got to be, because you're in a swing state. You've got to be inundated. I mean, and we're in California. There's nothing much anybody's going to do to change the results of a presidential election in California. There are other elections going on, but I get 4 or 5 text messages a day. I wish Apple would give me a little switch that says, "Hey, I've already voted, so there's no point in asking me to change my vote. It's done. I'm not giving any more money. But there's no setting for that. So you just have to go stop. Well, are we? You raise an interesting question, Amy, and the reason I ask, is it worse than it's been, is because it does seem like technology and social media and 24-hour news and all this inundation of information that technology has brought us has changed how people relate to what's going on.
Let me tell you a hypothesis that I have. Maybe I shouldn't say this publicly, but whatever. I've already
say it. You're 30 years old now. It's okay.
I'm 30 years old. That's exactly right. All right. Here's the theory that I have. I've been curious about this sort of recent spate of pulling the LA Times and the Post pulling editorial page endorsements. The Times is a separate issue. So we'll put the Times aside, but the Post to me was pretty interesting.
Because it was Jeff Bezos who bought the Washington. I was talking to somebody the other day, said, Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post? And I said, well, yeah, everybody in my group knows that. But I guess in the real world, people aren't really quite aware of that. Certainly made them aware. I've been trying to figure out, it was pretty late in the game, and that was a strange move from my point of view for him. I've been thinking about Elon Musk, and if you separate what he's been saying on Twitter from what he's been doing leading up to the election, and by that I mean offering $1 million, the basically the lottery system for people signing the pledge or whatever. I started thinking about the companies and the holding companies, and a lot of the tech companies, had their earnings calls in the past week. So I was looking through, paying attention to all of that. Amazon as a company's biggest revenue driver is not Amazon.com. It is AWS by a significant margin. And AWS is their cloud services.
Right. And their largest contract is the US government. And SpaceX,
same thing, U.S. government.
Same thing. And SpaceX is recently, like this was announced a couple of days ago, or disclosed, I should say, going to be building new types of satellites for DoD, Department of Defense. So is it plausible that, if Harris wins, whatever, it's no big deal. Theoretically,
because unlike the other guy, she's not going to punish.
That's what I was going to say.
Campaigned against
Correct. Her. So if she wins, and if these editorials had gone forward, my sense is that lists are being kept. And is it plausible that,
if Trump wins
in a Trump administration,
there would be Harris, it would be problematic for your business.
And would there be a potential, like a real threat to those contracts? SpaceX, I'm not sure who steps in at that point, because Blue Origin potentially would be the other, I guess, and Boeing. There are others.
In fact, when Bezos pulled that endorsement from the Washington Post, that very same day, Trump had a meeting with Blue Origin. Now, Bezos says, I didn't know about that.
He probably didn't. He's far removed.
Right.
But I could see, it would be that the transformation process is, I think, probably technologically implausible at this point. A giant migration from AWS to Azure or to Google Cloud, but I could see siphoning off. And so back to your original question, if I think about FDR or some of these other critical moments in history in the US, I'm curious to know if there was another time that we weren't under some kind of crazy economic stress where a couple of business leaders have had this much influence in the results.
I mean, did Carnegie or, Standard Oil, did Rockefeller have this kind of influence on? Probably, actually.
Yeah, my assumption
William
is
Randolph
at that point,
Hearst did, for sure.
But that's also a good analogy to where we are right now with the state of technology advancement. And how, if you think about that original moment in time when the railroads were being built and this moment in time when all of the advanced tech and deep tech is really scaling, it's somewhat analogous.
Yeah. I feel like I look at somebody like Tim Cook. Tim is the model of a modern major CEO who plays both sides adroitly. He was in China at almost exactly the same time. They announced that India was going to make the bulk of the new iPhones next year. He has both, I'm sure, he certainly appeared with Trump when Trump was president. Remember the Texas plant that Apple was opening to build the Mac Pro, and Trump made an appearance at that plant with Tim Cook by his side. Tim Apple meeting in the White House with other executives. It seems to me he's a very good diplomat in the sense he burns no bridges. He carefully praises everybody, doesn't offend anybody. Isn't that a better model for how a CEO should approach this? Any thoughts, Nicholas?
It's funny.
Oh, go ahead, Shoshana.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's more of an ethical model in that, regulatory capture is a thing. And if companies know they can get a sweet deal through elected officials, they'll definitely try that. And we should blame the elected officials for that. We should blame them for wanting to be courted by industries and wanting to say, we'll work nicely together if you're nice to me. And I know that's a big Trump thing, but it's childish. And, I've heard of stories in at much smaller scales, but for state reps and state senators where they're like, this bill hurts you. Well, maybe you should consider donating to my campaign. But then if they're whistleblower, then they'll never be able to do business in that state again. Just crazy stuff. And I see this all over. We're right to think about it at the presidential level because it matters and it's big there. But this kind of regulatory capture and corruption is a problem all over. And I like that. I think Tim Cook does a little better job where he's just nice to everyone, doesn't really pick sides. And I think that's more ethical. But if we see other CEOs doing the other kind of stuff, it's not right at any level, but you kind of get it if the elected officials say, hey, I'm open to whoever's going to back me. It's not how it should work, but you kind of get why they end up operating that way to so that they don't become targets.
I mean, look, elected officials represent their constituency, and that includes companies and CEOs as much as you and me. So they're representing a constituency. So I'm not exactly saying that companies shouldn't weigh in and the politicians shouldn't look to companies. There was a story, I think it was in CNN, that Andy Jassy, after the assassination attempt on Trump, called to wish him well. And Trump said, it would really make me feel better is if you throw some money my way. And I mean, that's campaigning. That's part of the problem is that's how it works in the United States. Politics and money are hand in hand, and we don't seem to have the stomach for changing that. And so it's hard to get angry when Harris, I think, raised more than $1 billion after her announcement. It costs more than $1 billion to become a president of the United States. Is that not problematic? Does that not feed oligarchs? The people who really can give that kind of money? Okay, you guys, you're being very smart and judicious, and I praise you.
One thing I will say, though, is that I think there have been studies shown that the candidates that do better with small donors tend to be a little crazier. That
interesting, RFK Jr. and so.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, exactly, stuff like that. And it's it's not that I'm not open to campaign finance reform. It's just, it depends on like what you're trying to solve for. And if you want politicians to be less crazy, I'm not necessarily sure that that's the way to go, because small dollar donors like guys like RFK Jr. and some of the crazier ones, or Carrie Lake, I think she did better with small dollar donors and people
sense.
like that.
Yeah.
And that scares me. I'm like, I get where we're going here, but like maybe we like try not to incentivize that stuff so much in the system.
I don't want to turn this into the, TWiT politics edition. We try to kind of stay away from politics as much as possible. But I think that there is a little bit of a nexus between big tech, and certainly big tech CEOs today, and the political order of the day. So I'm really curious what the responsibility of tech is. I worry that it's a sci-fi trope that eventually corporations will run the world, right?
Corporations are already running things.
But I have a feeling we're halfway there. Yeah.
No. I mean, I would say that we are. Look, during the Trump administration, there were a lot of people that left the State Department, and they went to work at Microsoft. Microsoft has amassed a formidable a formidable team of people very well versed in international issues and diplomacy, which was a very, very smart move by Brad Smith. And I think it served Microsoft quite well. I think if you want to think about the future of government and business, I would look to, what's that part of California, Leo, and maybe Shoshana and Nicholas also know. There's that, they've been, some tech folks have been quietly.
Oh, yeah. It's just north of us. Yeah. North San Francisco Bay. Is it San Joaquin County? I can't remember the county, but they've been buying up land. They wanted to create a tech mecca, which, by the way, was going to be voted on Tuesday in the area, and they quickly pulled that initiative because they realized they didn't have the votes.
Yeah. Well, whether or not that happens, there are special economic zones now in Haiti and in other economically depressed areas around the world, where if you want to do experimentation, like biomedical experimentation that is not legal in the United States, economically depressed or emerging economies are happy to have tech billionaire money come in. They've created special economic zones where it's possible for you to go. And
is that a bad thing?
Well, this is the point that I'm making is, I think if you were, I'd be curious to know if behind closed doors, it's like a three-sided prisoner's dilemma situation. You've got the government believing that it has all the power because it has the ability to regulate. You've got the tech sector, which is building all of the tools that everybody now relies on, and they're sitting on top of mounds of data. And then you have finance. You've got the street, that believes it has all the power because it has all the money. And in reality, no one of those three has complete and total power. They collaborating would be better for everybody, but they each believe that they alone are suited to make the decisions on behalf of everybody, which you're starting to see play out in many different ways. I mean, if you look at who is Neri Oxman's husband, VC hedge fund guy who was writing letters. Help me out here.
I don't know. I'm not.
Come on, Amy. My brain is melted. So did too much writing today.
All of the blood has gone to your calves. That's
it has. You should see them. Anyhow, but he is he was behind the ouster of
say again, Benita.
Bill Ackman.
Bill Ackman. Thank you. So Ackman was behind extensive campaigns to get college presidents to resign, and was successful in a few cases, right? So there's a center of power, nexus of power. But you've got, Elon Musk exercising his power in different ways. So I think the issue more is we don't have if you go back to like FDR, he was my favorite president. If you go back to that point in history, that we did have trust for the most part in government. And there was a singular accountability chain. We don't have that anymore. Things are decentralized. Trust is eroded, and people are following different types of leaders.
Yeah, but I think we forget that there were people, lots of them, who thought the New Deal was a horrible thing, and that FDR was a commie, And there were quite a few people who did not like FDR.
And this has been, in the 30s, actually, when FDR got elected, there was a fascist takeover, an attempted fascist takeover by corporations, by like DuPont and things like that.
Right. So that was my original question is I'm not sure that we haven't always dealt with kind of this kind of thing, but it feels like if you just look at social media alone, that there are tools that have been weaponized out there in ways both by Russian disinformation groups, by oligarchs in the United States, to kind of sway public opinion that didn't exist before, And I just worry. I'm not one of those people who says social media is ruining our world and especially children, but X has become, as one might say, a political weapon for Elon Musk. I don't know. So it's interesting.
Is that what one might say, Leo?
One might say that. It's interesting because I think he made a joke about buying Twitter, was forced 100%. To buy it, right? He didn't really want it. But then as the election loomed, I think he suddenly realized, well, wait a minute. He wanted to buy it because he wanted to make dad jokes, I think, but maybe not. Do you think that way back when he was playing 3D chess and he wanted Twitter because he knew how powerful it would be come November 3rd at 2024?
This is my own opinion. We've talked about this before. I don't think so. I think he got backed into a corner. I think he
just
was
got lucky.
being flippant and got backed into a corner, had to put together financing, bought it. It was not profitable to begin with, and now he's stuck with this albatross. And
well, he's going to lose money, but he can afford to lose $44 billion. It isn't only half of it's his. $18 billion comes from banks who are
but that
not so happy.
He's pretty leveraged, though. I mean, he had to use. I don't.
No, you're right. He's borrowed against his SpaceX and Tesla stock, and it could crash either stock, most likely Tesla, if he were to be called to put that money in. I don't know if that's what's worrying him at this point. I also really wonder if tech executives who are choosing sides in this are doing the right thing. Isn't it better to be a Tim Cook? In the old days, you would see companies donate to both parties, hoping that that neither party would notice that they'd also donated to their opponent.
Well, Sundar's been quiet. We haven't heard anything out of that. We haven't heard anything out of. Yeah.
Google's an interesting story because 10 years ago, I remember people saying Google has no lobbying arm in Washington, D.C. They do now.
The only person who's been sort of specific about an endorsement is Elon Musk. Jeff Bezos. No,
because Andreessen Horowitz, Ben Horowitz has been. Mark Andreessen has been. There is a group of, now my friend Jeff Jarvis would call them TESCREAL billionaires. These billionaires who have this kind of weird sci-fi vision of the future, that what happens to our descendants is more important than what happens to us. And these guys are, I mean, they're really out there, but there are quite a few of them. The Palmer Luckeys of the world. I think a smart CEO, Tim Cook, probably Mark Zuckerberg, I would include there, Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, are staying above the fray while behind the scenes working the gears.
Right. If you're the CEO of a publicly traded company, your board absolutely does not want you to come down.
Right.
Does not want you to publicly say anything at all, which is the correct thing, the correct position.
That's the right way to do it, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd also add in that it bothers me when CEOs try to basically, donate to campaigns, come out there for candidates to get government contracts or more government contracts. But it bothers me equally when they advocate for regulations that they know will harm their competitors. So it's funny, some of this works me up, but what worked me up way more was when Sam Altman went before Congress and was like, oh no, regulate me. And in ways that he knew would harm other AI
regulatory
competitors.
capture, right?
Oh, drives me nuts because lawmakers eat it up. They're like, when has someone ever asked to be regulated? And I'm like, it's such a thing. This is like such a basic thing. Have you not Googled this? Sorry, Google, Googled this in a bit because like you see it all the time and it bothers me. Like, and I respect when companies, genuinely want a regulation because they think it'll make stuff safer. And you can kind of figure out if you know the area where they're being honest about it, or if they oppose a regulation because it'll stop competition, they're going out on a limb there. And I appreciate that. But so much of the time, the easiest course of action for them is just to say, regulate me in ways that'll harm my competitors. I win. I look really good to the elected officials. Mm-hmm. And I won't name all the companies doing this, but a lot of companies do it. And it drives me nuts because they're about like whatever helps them right now, screw the future, and screw their competitors. And then the FTC ends up going after them or their competitors. And I'm like, let's stop this vicious cycle and make sure that regulations don't harm competition unnecessarily. Keep people safe. I'm all for that. But like so much of it is just asinine regulatory capture. And I see it across areas. But man, I'm really into Family Guy right now. That's what grinds my gears,
You know what really grinds my gears? Yeah, we had last week Alex Stamos on, and he'd written an editorial in the Sacramento Bee saying California should or Governor Newsom should absolutely not sign the AI regulation bill that had passed the state's assembly and legislature. He did not. He vetoed it, and Stamos was very happy. Some said that. Great. You agree that was the wrong kind of regulation?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. It was just like regulation for regulation's sake, and it was arbitrary but all consuming. And I like Alex Stamos a lot too. I bug him now and then for ideas, and he's always very gracious with his time. Yeah, he's awesome. I love him.
Well, I feel like, Elon Musk supported it. I'm sure Jeffrey Hinton, a lot of the AI doomers supported it because it had things like a kill switch, so that no AI could be generated unless there was a way to pull the plug on it before it took over the world. And it felt a little bit sci-fi-ish. Newsom said, look, it's just going to drive AI research out of the state. It's not going to serve any purpose. He says, I'm not against AI regulation, but this is the wrong bill, and I will work next year with the legislature to come up with a better bill. Amy, you think that was the right point of view? Who knows?
I think, well, the problem that I've got, what I have been saying for a very long time and absolutely striking out when it comes to convincing anybody to think differently is that the regulatory structures that exist in the EU and the United States don't work when it comes to tech. Regulate, again, like Shoshana probably knows way more about this than I do, so she should chime in. But my totally uninformed opinion is that regulation is inherently a response to something that's already happened. It is not anticipating, because it's very hard to do this unless you build out models, which we do for a living, but you still have to continually update.
Do you use a lot of AI in your work now?
We always have. So we were 12 years ago using machine learning to do some of the modeling that
is AI on signals. Really a bad way to describe this, though. You're using computing to chew on data to look at trends, right? Yeah.
Here, let me.
It implies intelligence implies it's like humans. All right, finish your thoughts.
Yeah, let me say what I was going to say, and then I can talk to you about that.
Yeah.
But basically, I don't think regulation is the right way forward, and I get the desire in California to do something, but that thing, if you regulate, you're going to wind up with lawsuits. Every company that you attempt to regulate is going to wind up suing you, and it doesn't accomplish what you want. What I would rather have happen is incentivize these companies to make extraordinary amounts of money, such that they would be not doing they would be doing bad by their shareholders to make poor decisions. And the way that you incent them to make money is to compel them to do what's best for our shared goals for the future, right? Because they're not going to respond positively to regulation. But if you create a situation where they're going to make a lot more money, then they have a fiduciary responsibility they have to comply. Like they have to comply. But like setting up a situation where the big tech, like our biggest companies make even more money is not something I know that everybody is thrilled about. So we've been using machine learning. I have repeatedly, multiple times built like clones of myself and trained it to answer things.
No kidding.
Yeah, I actually.
How do you train it? Do you give it your writings or?
In like what year was that? 2016, maybe. I built a chatbot of myself and deployed it at something called the Online News Association conference, which was like
I've spoken
back
to that.
in
That's
the day.
A great group. Yeah.
And as I was talking about emerging trends, I said you could ask. I had called it Akira. It was meant to be non-gendered, and ask whatever questions you want. And I built it using Pandora bots and some other stuff. And anyways, it was more of an experiment for me versus it being a tool for the people who were there. This group of journalists, these are journalists who should be behaving better. I'll ask, what are you wearing? Like, who do you like? So they were asking totally inappropriate questions.
Oh my God.
And I had programmed it to respond with like, hey, this is our future. And this is not a good way to train the systems that we're all going to be interacting with soon. Anyways.
That's nice. Yeah. My friend Kevin Rose says, always be polite. I always say please and thank you to AI when you're talking.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is being polite. Part of it is also like, there's so much misinformation at this point that's baked into these things. A classmate of my daughter's, so I don't know what I was doing yesterday, but I get this email forwarded that my daughter had forwarded to her from one of her classmates that said, I saw your mom in a TikTok video or a YouTube video or something. So, and it's a picture of me. So I'm looking at the video. It's some guy who is talking about interesting last names and the job that the people went on to do. So we're going through all these people and then it gets to my name. So it's a picture of me. It's Amy Webb, Webb, spiders.
She works on the web. Oh,
she founded the British Tarantula Society.
What?
And so I was like, hey guys, this is a good. So I emailed my daughter and her friend back. And I was
ChatGPT. Is that what ChatGPT said?
So I was like, this is a good opportunity to remember that it's really important to check your sources. I am neither British nor I'm kind of freaked out by spiders. So
that's hysterical. But it is the case that Shoshana Weissmann is chairman of the Sloth Committee. So I hope ChatGPT knows that much. I want to take a little break. I hate getting political. I feel like it's on everybody's mind right now, and I really do wonder how much the world has changed because of all these new technologies, or if it's just something that we've always gone through in the past. I don't know. I feel like my biggest fear is that people get so overwhelmed that they decide not to participate. That they say, it doesn't matter, and it's too confusing, and everybody's at each other's throats, and I'm just gonna put my head down. I'm not gonna vote. I'm not gonna participate, and I completely understand that. I feel that way all the time, but I hope that you will all participate and get to wear the red, white, and blue Yo Vote badge. That's the badge of honor. We're gonna take a little break. Amy Webb is here, futurist, author of some great books, including the newest, The Genesis Machine. And I hope your husband relents so we can get some more books out of you. She's also the CEO of the Future Today Institute. Nicholas De Leon, who is the senior technology reporter at Electronics. Now, did you have anything to do with that title? Should it be technology?
I believe technically, my HR literal title is senior electronics reporter. So electronics is fine. It could be tech. You can put whatever you want. It
feels a little dated. Like, we only let him do Timex watches and remote controls.
Well, I'll be doing coffee machines shortly.
Oh,
so
I have some input for you. I have some input for you, Nicholas. They're very technical right now.
I know less than zero about coffee. So this will be very exciting.
I'll hook you up with Mark Prince, the coffee geek. He is the king of coffee machines. He got me to buy 2 in the last 3 months.
Really?
Yeah, and I like them both for different reasons. Yeah. It's a big topic right now. Just ask Amy Webb what she had for breakfast.
I drink. What's your coffee machine?
I am now using a Breville Oracle Jet, which is the newest Breville, and it's a very automated. It's not like a Marzocco where it does all where you have to tweak.
That's everything. Too much. It's too much time.
I just want to push a button and get really good coffee. And he had also recommended, and actually I really like it, that from Ninja, who's famous for making weird appliances. Like I just saw an ad, they're doing a slushy machine. But Ninja makes a very good coffee maker for only $500 at Cafe Luke's. And it actually makes very credible, not just espressos, but regular coffee, drip coffee, iced coffee. Yeah. And it's surprisingly good. So it has a lot of the features of the Breville. So,
I have a Jura E8.
The Juras are very nice. Yeah.
They're great. It has you can technically have it make the milk drinks for you, but it's challenging to clean. So I have a separate little Nespresso swirly thing. There, Nicholas, your review's been
There's
done.
some stuff. We just wrote it for you, Nicholas. Yeah. No, it's become a hot topic. Very hot topic these days. Also here's Shoshana Weissmann, who, what's your coffee preference, Shoshana?
You're gonna all judge me really hard. Nescafe. So I was in Patagonia a little back, and their Nescafe is amazing. So I'm like, you know what? It's cheap. I can pack it. It's the same everywhere, and it'll save me money. So I have instant coffee every day.
Wow. Okay. You're disqualified.
Yeah, I understand. I don't blame you. But they have different kinds. Like they have this Colombian one I have now, and they have this hazelnut one. And
I'm sure
the original's okay, but I'm getting into the fancy Nescafes.
Oh, very fancy. Very nice. Shoshana is, of course, the head of digital media at rstreet.org. And we are glad to have all three of you. Our show today brought to you by Bitwarden. I love Bitwarden. I'm a firm believer that anything having to do with crypto and with security should be open source, because then you can inspect it, you can make sure that there's no backdoors in it, that it's doing what it says, and that's Bitwarden. It's the open source password manager that offers a cost-effective solution that could dramatically improve your chances of staying safe online. And that's more important now than ever, because it's a big holiday shopping time, right? People are going out. They're doing it on the web. They're going online. They're going to for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and they're going to be looking at these websites. I know. I see myself doing that, and I have to tell you, the bad guys know this. And so one of the things they do is impersonate legit websites. So Bitwarden, how did Bitwarden help you? It will prevent you from filling in your password on a site that looks to be real but is not. So if you go to Amazon.com instead of Amazon.com and it asks for your password, and by the way, they're very credible. They look exactly like the real thing. Bitwarden will say, not going to fill it in. And now they've announced the expansion of that inline autofill. It's not just passwords anymore. You can also, with the Bitwarden browser extension, use it for credit cards, identities, and even passkeys. Same benefit, though. It prevents you from filling in fields that are not secure. It enables a more secure interaction with web forms for payment details, for contact info, for addresses, and more. It protects you when you go out online shopping. With Bitwarden, you get unparalleled SSO integration. This is great for businesses, very flexible. You can quickly and easily safeguard all business logins using your single sign-on security policies, fully compatible with SAML 2 and OIDC. And Bitwarden, of course, ensures smooth integration with your existing solutions. So I mention that because Bitwarden's great for individuals. Bitwarden's great for businesses. It's great for everyone. Thousands of businesses, including some of the world's largest organizations, trust Bitwarden to protect their online information. And because Bitwarden's open source, they know it's completely secure and reliable, regularly audited by third-party experts. And because it's open source, there's another benefit. It's free for individuals and free forever for unlimited passwords on all the devices you use, iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, Linux, and that's including passkey support. That's part of it. And hardware key support. So you get all the benefits of Bitwarden for free. And the reason I think that's important is I think there are a lot of people who don't use a password manager because they don't want a subscription. They don't want to pay for it. I know you use a password manager because you're smart, but tell your friends and family who I know, and we all have them, are still using the same password on every site, a password they made up with their dog's name and their mother's maiden name and their birthday. Those are not secure passwords, and it's really dangerous to reuse passwords. Bitwarden will help them stop doing that at no cost. Switching to Bitwarden is very easy. It only takes minutes. They support importing for most password management solutions. So if you're not using Bitwarden and you're interested, I would highly recommend. I switched a few years ago. Steve Gibson, our security guy, he's also a Bitwarden fan. You can get started with Bitwarden's free trial in business of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or as I said, first get started for free across all devices. As an individual user, it's free forever. I said, well, are you ever going to rug pull that? And they said, no, we're open source. We can't. Somebody would just fork it. It will be free forever. Bitwarden.com/twit. That's Bitwarden, Bitwarden, Bitwarden.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. And we thank you for supporting us by going to that address so they know you saw it here. Thank you, Bitwarden. Bitwarden.com/twit. Talking about AI, story in Bloomberg saying Amazon's AI-based Alexa is stuck in the lab and won't be revealed. They had hoped to show it when they did their Kindle reveal last week, but according to Bloomberg, it's not ready. The beta version they had hoped to ship this year won't be out at best until next year. Is that good news or bad news? Nicholas, do your real people use these voice assistants?
Yeah. I was just going to say, when I was at Vice several years ago, we did a story on one of the Echoes or the Alexa. How to set up skills, how to make your own skill. It was like the top rated story of the day. So I was like blown away at the demand for information about Alexa back then. That was 2016 or 17. I feel like it's a little bit of a fumble, to be honest. Like when they first came out in 2014, I remember initially being like, is this even a real device? But they seem to like plateau. Like we have a bunch in the house. We use them literally just to like turn on lights and maybe set timers every now and then.
Yeah, they're glorified kitchen timers for most people.
Yeah, so I feel like, as like future looking as they were 2014 when the first one came out, they very quickly kind of plateaued as like, okay, they do this. And so it must be very frustrating if you're Amazon, hey, we developed this, this tech, and now ChatGPT and so forth are kind of eating our lunch. How did that happen? Yeah, I can imagine it's very frustrating for them.
Could I ask a follow-up? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please.
Well, so on the one hand, in some ways, Amazon has had a full suite of AI tools that they themselves use to help build their own products and services that are very, very impressive. But on the consumer-facing side of things, why do you think? I don't know. I guess I'm curious, Nicholas. Why do you think consumers were they freaked out by it? Is there a brand image problem, or is it just like why? Because the devices are really cheap, and there was a time a couple of years ago when Microsoft was feeling very, very far behind the eight ball on this one and was trying to release a sub $50 product of their own to market that was consumer facing.
Cortana.
So just what do you think?
Amazon says there's 500 billion Alexa-enabled devices in the world. That's just not Echoes, though. That's toothbrushes and toasters and microwave ovens. But that's a lot, 500 million.
I mean, a ton of hotels bought Alexa devices. So there are lots of rooms. So that's that. And I think there's a lot of them in China, right? Aren't there tons of Marriott properties that have... I could be wrong on this. Yeah. So some of those devices are like hotels, but just curious, like, why do you think people didn't buy them?
Yeah, I don't know. My sort of recollection is like these sort of voice assistants, whether it's Alexa, we're saying it. I'm sorry to the folks that just triggered it. All these little services. Like I apologize. So all these services, we all know the names. It's a tech that, it feels like tech was kind of struggling before AI kind of hit maybe 2 years ago when ChatGPT really blew up, I feel like tech was searching for like the next. It was VR, it was crypto, it was these digital voice assistants. It were kind of like moving from like thing to thing for the next big thing after social media, or after mobile. I just think these things are limited in what they can do. How many times are you going to ask for a timer during the day? How many times are you going to ask for the weather in Albuquerque or whatever? It's like, it's a neat toy, but like it's not going to like transform my life in the way that the iPhone did, for better or worse, back in the day. So they're useful tools, but like useful in the same way that like an alarm clock is useful. It's like it works, and okay, great.
When somebody asked me some years ago, probably 10 years ago now, or maybe less, but what new technology I was excited about? I get that question on a regular basis, and at the time, I said, I think voice is going to be the next new interface. I think a lot of us thought that the new interface for computing would be voice. For some reason, it's proven very disappointing to people. It might possibly be, I know what you're asking, Amy, are people paranoid about having a microphone in their homes? And some people are, for sure. I talk to people all the time who say, I would never have an Alexa or a Google Assistant or a Siri in my house listening to me. But I think for the most part, people just didn't find them that useful. Shoshana, do you have a voice assistant listening to you?
I do not. It freaks me out when they like respond back. I do have a, I don't want to say its name, enabled iPad, or not iPad, like tablet, so I can watch TV on my 40-degree inclined treadmill, which will not allow me to watch other stuff on it. So I have that.
Wait a minute, 40-degree up or down?
Up, and then 6-degree down.
Whoa.
It's so
That's
good.
very steep.
I love it. It's because I trained for the mountains, so it's like perfect. So I have the little tablet on it because it limits what you can do. But what people underestimate is the Shabbat observing constituency who could totally use Alexa, and no one's showing Orthodox Jews how to use it for Shabbat. A few years ago,
would it be compliant? You could use it because you're not touching a switch.
So, like, I think people would be cool with the timer aspect, like how it can connect to things for timers. I use it to change channels on the TV automatically. I set it before Shabbat.
I should explain, for some time, I was your Shabbos goy.
Yeah, and, exactly. And now I have a robot doing it, which is great.
Oh, like, really?
For more traditional Jews, like, I think they'd be chill with like having a heater on, or like having lights go on and
Could
off.
I say a word, turn on the light, and that would be okay? That would be compliant?
No, you'd have to set it before, but setting it before is still like better than not having it at all.
Hey, a word, turn on the light at sunrise tomorrow, or sunset tomorrow.
Right, yeah, exactly, stuff like that. For me,
and then it does it automatically. That lets you off the hook, huh?
I guess you could set it up for ovens and for.
Exactly.
I'm just thinking about like.
I have a Shabbat compatible oven that connects to the Wi-Fi. I don't know how it would work, but I guess it would work kind of like that, right?
I just tape down the light in my fridge and never untape it because I don't really care if I have a light in my fridge. But like, if I did care, then I would like want a little device like doing that for Shabbat and stuff.
So just to explain, if you're Orthodox, opening the refrigerator has a little switch that turns on a light. And on Sabbath, that would be inappropriate, right? You're not supposed to do that.
Exactly. We can't work. So it's like you can't turn on and off lights.
Can't do any
basically work stuff that creates light or heat. So candles or the oven, or even stuff that doesn't have light. If it creates heat in another way, or if it's electric, we basically don't do it. But Amazon Alexa, darn it, I can do it. Sorry, I hope it doesn't make the noise. But,
it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, no,
we like it. We like.
I know it bothers me because I have an employee by that same name, and it really stresses me out when I hear it in the background. I need to change the name. But like, why is no one marketing to Orthodox Jews? Like, that's a huge.
You should. Do you know who Mordechai Lightstone is?
Yes, I love him. He's great.
He's an old friend. My assumption is like he would be on top of all of this.
Right? Why isn't he doing? No, I'm kidding. It's not his job. Why isn't he?
It kind of is his job.
And also for like other people with disabilities who like could benefit from this kind of stuff. Like I mean, the automation is amazing. I kept switching back and forth between King of the Hill and Alfred Hitchcock Presents on Shabbat without having to press a button, and that's like life-changing for me. So I don't have to sit through late Simpsons, which I hate watching. It's like perfect.
No one anticipated these problems,
right?
Back in the days of the Old Testament, they hadn't really, or whatever, the Torah. They hadn't really.
So again, regulations don't work in the like. It just doesn't work in the era of technology. Like the Torah, the whole thing, the Bible, it's a bunch of regulations. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I love it.
There's no R Street for the Bible, though. I don't think.
No, I do kind of nerd out that way on Torah, though. Like I'll go like full like constitutional on Torah, but we can have original intent because God's intent matters. But then I'm like, okay, I'll violate.
But who knows exactly what God's intent was, right?
Exactly.
There's a lot of interpretation. For instance, I understand the electricity on and off. It isn't. I mean, obviously there wasn't electricity in the time of the Torah, but it's creating and destroying, right? So,
but when it first started, when electricity was first introduced, most Jews thought it was like chill, that was fine because it's like different. And then
some rabbi came along and said, "No, you can't do that."
I'm kind of with that rabbi, but I'm not always with the rabbis. I challenge the rabbis, and they don't always like it because they're like, "Shoshana, can you just like go along to get along every now and then?" And I'm like, "No, must understand everything, like to its core."
It's fascinating to me. But,
I will jump in, Leo, if I could very briefly. Ashley, as you met Ashley, she just texted me and she says, as a disabled military veteran, she does find Alexa quite helpful around the house to turn on light. You know, she sometimes has back issues. And we got light switches in weird spots. So it's like, and I have them, of course, because I'm a nerd, I have them hooked up to these services, and she finds it very useful in those, why these things haven't really grown beyond that level that we're kind of talking about. I don't know, but she literally just texted me a second ago and said she loves it and it is very helpful for her.
My elderly mom, same thing, loves it for that reason. Yeah.
I think some of it is use cases. I think the other thing is at the beginning, you really had to speak clearly. Otherwise, the systems didn't understand you. My dad's got Parkinson's. He struggles. I would love to fill the place where he lives with voice assistants, but honestly, I think we've tried, and I think he's probably too intimidated to use them, no matter how many times we try. Yeah, but it's finding use cases, man.
I have one of each in every room of my house.
That seems like a lot, Leo.
It seems like overkill. It's part of being a tech guy.
Leo, do you use them for different things, or are they all to kind of catch all?
I always think I'm going to use them for home automation. I have this fantasy. Yeah. That I'm going to say, "Good morning, A-word," and she's going to open the curtains and start the coffee and, play my news updates. But I never get around to doing all that.
We got smart thermostats over the summer, and we'd still just push the button on the thermostat itself. It's like, we could use, so it's,
Yes, exactly. I don't know what it is about humans. I think we feel like light switches are fine. You flip it one way, it goes on. You flip it another way, it goes off. What do you need anything else for? Anyway, Amazon's struggling with this, of course, because they're losing billions of dollars a year on the A-word, even though they're selling them like crazy. They had in 2016 1,000 employees and basically unlimited resources. But once Amazon realized people were just they weren't buying stuff. They were just using them, for timers and things. And it was costing them a lot of money. So adding intelligence, maybe that's, the next way to get people to use these things. Here's a chart from Bloomberg about Amazon's growth with Echo. They had one product in 2014. By 2019, they had 22 Echo-enabled products. It went up and down, but as of last year, there were 18 different products, including eyeglasses that had Amazon Echo built in. And yet, nobody really cares a whole lot about it. Now, Panos Panay left Microsoft to go work for this division, and it's thought maybe he might bring some excitement to it. I don't know. It really feels like this was an opportunity missed. Really does.
I will say I'm thinking now. I feel like the Amazon has also gotten a little chattier over the years. Like it'll just do a notification. It'll say, "Oh, a book from your favorite author is on sale."
I hate that. Don't you hate that?
Oh, you're running low on paper towels.
It's an ad.
Want more? Yeah, it's literally an ad. So I'm like, I don't. I mean, I can't. I'll just leave it because it doesn't bother me that. But certainly 10 years ago, I would have been like, this is an outrage. But yeah, you could just feel them trying to squeeze more revenue out of the fact that everyone owns one of these things and they just use them to turn on the lights.
Would it change your point of view and others about the Echo if it had ChatGPT in it? That's what they're hoping, I guess.
So I think that would be the killer app at this point, because the Google devices also are really, I think, underperform. Anything that is answer related, you wind up with a string of hyperlinks that isn't super useful. And
Siri's even worse. She says, well, here's what I found on the web about that.
Right. Like, so I think once, I don't know if it's a ChatGPT as much as it is, could be Claude, it could be whatever else.
Well, yeah, in fact, it's probably not ChatGPT. I misspoke. Amazon has its own models, of course. Yep. And according to Bloomberg, a former AI engineer says the Echo teams have lately been leaning on models from Mistral and Anthropic. Mm-hmm. Amazon has invested $4 billion into Anthropic. Amazon says, Bloomberg writes, that no single model works best for every use case, and its teams take advantage of multiple LLMs through AWS.
Yeah. So I would give it, I bet you once some of these tools make their way into devices, I think you'll start to see like a hockey stick, 40% incline explosion.
We've been waiting for that. Yeah. You agree, Shoshana? You think a hockey stick explosion once you get some nice AI in your Echo?
I don't know, man. I could,
it'd be somebody to talk to.
It would be nice. Yeah, just talking on the treadmill. No, I don't want to talk on the treadmill. It's like I'm already out of breath, like walking up that freaking incline. But they did just add Amazon Video and Netflix. When they add Hulu, I can like take the tablet and put it off the treadmill. Right now, it's just like the tablet on top of the screen.
Because you need to touch it. You have to touch it. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels kind of stupid.
There was a Fire TV Cube that you could talk to, and it was connected to all the devices, and you could say, hey, turn on the Niners game, and it would know which devices to turn on and all that, which channel to go to, and it would just do it all. It was really great. I don't know why I stopped using it. It's so strange. You think these things seem like they would be so great, and then they just, I don't know, maybe, I don't know.
Well, it takes a long time for us to develop new technology patterns.
That's probably it, huh?
And I think at this point, everything is new and novel because we are inundated continuously with things that feel like they've just happened or they've just launched. So unhooking from here, I can give you a great example. I was doing some work with Dell, and they sent me a brand new laptop, and I'm trying to work.
It's a Copilot laptop.
So I'm just trying to hit Control C.
Yeah.
And every time I go to, my hand has muscle memory for where that control button is. Mm-hmm. And instead I'm hitting some AI button that is completely...
the Copilot button. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, if I were to go back in time...
How annoying is that, right?
So...
this is Clippy. Isn't this Clippy 2.0?
The laptop is good. It's the complaint. It's a very good laptop.
Do you use Copilot?
I do not.
No. So I rest my case. It's another little.
I use Apple OS. So I am.
We can talk about Apple Intelligence because that's coming out.
Yeah. I use Windows occasionally to stay on top of things. And, but the point was like, it's a big ask of me to develop a new habit to not put my finger in that spot. That's what I'm talking about. And it seems very simple.
I agree with you.
But we're talking about converting many people into many new habits, given the breadth of technology that's out there. And I think that's just going to take a little bit more time.
Right.
It may not have anything to do with the tech itself.
Right.
Actually, I think it's also has similar to tablets, to touch screens in your car. People used to love that. Now people want buttons back because buttons are actually better.
Well, it's reasonable. You can get excited about a new technology, and then as you use it, realize, okay, I was excited, but it isn't really life-changing, or worse, it's bad. It's negative, like button touch screens instead of buttons. That's a very good example. Well, anyway, Amazon is struggling and really wants you to start using, if you would, start using your Echo more, and someday maybe adding a little assistant in there. I have high hopes.
Weren't their earnings pretty good? I mean, they weren't like Intel,
Oh, yeah. Everybody's doing fine. AWS made a lot of money, as to your point. That's their big driver. Microsoft, too. In fact, quarterly results were generally very good. The tech industry is not hurting.
Except for one company.
Are you want to talk about Intel?
I would love to, because from my point of view, I don't mean to insert myself, but from my point of view, that was the reason is a lack of strategic foresight. They did not need to take a $16 billion.
Darn Webb.
Well, because they did what a lot of companies do during the pandemic. Everybody needed computers. They're like, we can make computers. We'll spin up. We'll just mass produce chips. So they bought the technology that was good for that moment in time, without thinking through what does the world look like, 1 to 3 years from now. And if they had just looked over their shoulder at what NVIDIA was doing, they might have created a different plan that was more extensible, that didn't saddle them with enormous technical debt, which is the situation that they're in right now.
Yeah. You think it was as recent as 2020, though? I feel like.
Well, didn't they spin up? No. There's been a long decline, but the originally it was $1 billion that they had told, or whatever. The original storyline was we're going to be about $1 billion short, and during that earnings call, the $1 billion went to $16 billion.
Yikes.
And a lot of that had to do with the investments that were made in facilities designed to produce chips that were relevant, during 2020 and 2021.
It's embarrassing for Intel to get, its competitors offering to buy them. It's embarrassing that they have now been removed from the Dow Jones Industrial Average and replaced with NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that, right? Yeah, I mean, I guess it's sad. But this is the way of the world. Companies rise and fall.
I love that the government is subsidizing Intel and trying to stop NVIDIA. I'm like, great job, guys, picking
smart move. Let's talk about the CHIPS Act. We're going to take a little break, and when we do, when we come back, we will talk about it. Shoshana Weissmann from ourstreet.org, Nicholas DeLeon from Consumer Reports. Subscribe. I've been a subscriber since 1980. Very proud, since I kind of emerged into the world. It's really worth reading, and I look forward to your coffee reviews. That's going to be fun. That's going to be interesting.
So do I. I also look.
I mean, are you going to focus more on capsule, like Nespresso and? I
guess it's whatever the market dictates. I mean, I was just assigned this maybe 2 weeks ago, so I'm really.
Are you going to do a lab and test 100 machines?
No. Well, the lab was still in Yonkers, so I will be just kind of writing up the reports and things like that. Maybe I'll test.
So they are doing that, though. They're going to do a lot of tests.
Yeah. No, they've studied, or they've tested coffee makers. I don't know how long.
I hope they get somebody who has who really is a coffee connoisseur, as opposed to somebody like Shoshana.
Right. I mean, no, I'm pretty sure our techs who are doing
this is nothing like my Nescafe.
I don't know. People. What do I use? I use a Lor, LOR. Espresso pod. That's kind of what and I use Amazon. So I'm exactly the last person to be a coffee snob. I use Amazon espresso pods.
There you go.
But I don't know.
They're cheap. They come in boxes, big boxes. And Nescafe can be used on Shabbat. Is that right?
Yeah, I have figured out how to make nicer. I figured out the way to make nice coffee on Shabbat without a machine. It's kind of you can make it work, but now Nescafe, and it's just easy. It's great.
You have to keep water hot for a day, but other than that,
you have a little hot plate. I have a little hot plate that I put on.
And you leave it on.
Yeah, a little hot plate. Hasn't burned down anything.
You can't have electricity. You just can't turn it on or off.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. So that hot plate runs all Saturday.
Sometimes Sunday when I forget too.
Just leave it on all the time.
Yeah.
Also with us, Amy Webb, author of The Big Nine and CEO of the Future Today Institute. Our show today, good to have all three of you, by the way. Our show today brought to you by Lookout. Every company today is in the business of managing data, right? And that means every company is at increased risk of data exposure and loss. Cyber threats, of course, breaches, leaks. Cyber criminals are getting smarter every day, getting more sophisticated. Those attacks, breaches now happen in minutes, not months. At a time when the majority of sensitive corporate data is no longer inside your building, it's moved to the cloud. Traditional boundaries no longer exist, and the strategies for securing that data have fundamentally changed. So it's a good thing we got Lookout. From the very first phishing text to the final data grab, Lookout stops modern breaches as swiftly as they unfold, whether on a device, in the cloud, across networks, or working remotely at the local coffee shop. And you know your employees are going to do that. Lookout gives you clear visibility into all your data at rest and in motion. You will monitor, assess, and protect without sacrificing productivity for security. So you can go to the coffee shop too. With a single unified cloud platform, Lookout simplifies and strengthens, reimagining security for the world that will be today. Visit lookout.com right now to learn how to safeguard data, to secure hybrid work, and reduce IT complexity. That's lookout.com. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. And thank you. If they ask, say, hey, I heard it on This Week in Tech. Lookout.com. Actually, that reminds me, there is a move back to the office, right? Didn't Amazon say we want everybody to move back to the office? How is that going, Amy?
I think people are pretty ticked off.
Yeah. I don't think anybody wants to go.
I think it's not going well.
No. Yeah. So that's a really unexpected change in the way businesses work.
Is it unexpected? It seems pretty, well,
if in hindsight, of course, it makes sense. But if I'd asked you, I don't know, before the pandemic, 5 years ago, do you think most employees will want to work at home? You would have said yes?
I think most people don't want to work.
Well, I understand that. That's the different question.
Well, look,
I know nobody wants to work. I don't blame you for that.
If you are, it depends on your circumstance. Childcare is very, very expensive.
True.
Pet care is very, very expensive.
Yeah.
I think there's a sense that you can multitask. I think that some people are very good at working remotely. My entire team, since we were founded, we have offices, but for the most part, everybody has always had the freedom to work remotely, and that's true even as we've grown. But we hire a very specific type of person, and we built the company around remote work. But if you that you kind of have to have those organic structures in place. I think if you went from having everybody in an office space, letting them work remote and then trying to get them to come back, I think that's tough.
It's hopeless, apparently.
That's happening at the same time that Meta has cut a lot of its perks. A lot of those perks that used to be attractive are also going away. Laundry, free meals, all that. Some of the best food I have ever had in my life was at Google and Twitter. Probably 15 years ago, and I've had Michelin-starred, restaurant meals, but there was some good food. I had good salads at both campuses, really good.
Well, and of course, it was good for business because they didn't want employees to walk off.
Yeah,
campus.
But you know what? So that's not unique. So there's been some media coverage of this lately, as though the tech industry invented this. That is not true. Bloomberg has always, I don't know if they still do, but back when I was a journalist 150 billion years ago, they were providing ample snacks and meals because they kind of wanted everybody to be, on site, working, fed, not distracted. Anyhow, so that's been at least a staple in some news organizations, probably less so today given the financials.
Yeah.
But.
And American Enterprise Institute, for anyone who's eaten there. Their food's great, but it used to be free. So it was like great to get invited there for lunch. So then you could have an enormous, delicious free meal. They like have all diet types. They always had cake. It was like, oh man, if you had a friend at AEI, you were doing good, you know.
I'm sure the Heritage has very good food too, and
I don't think they have a cafeteria like that. We never had. We have okay snacks, if I'm being real. But
do you work at home, Shoshana, or do you go into our street?
I work from home. I've always done a lot of work from home, and I'm really good at it. The problem is I work too much, and they kind of have to like tell me to like log off sometimes, which is great for them.
Wow,
and
that's interesting.
Then I get extra cred to keep going on unlimited vacation, so it like works out for everyone.
and of course, Nicholas, obviously you're not in Yonkers, so
no, I work from home. I've worked from home for most of my career. I've done the math here and there. Like my very first job in journalism was Gizmodo. I started right before the iPhone came out. That was remote. I mean, we had an office in Manhattan, but you didn't have to go. So I just worked from my apartment. TechCrunch, I worked remote. I was at TechCrunch for 4 years. Their big office was, Arrington's house for a while, was in San Francisco.
Did you work in Arrington's house?
No, I actually never went, but I had we had colleagues who did work there. But like I worked from home for the only time I haven't worked from home was at News Corp for 2 years, Vice for 2 years, and then Consumer Reports for like 2 years before the pandemic sent everyone home. So I'm used to, I've always had a home office, even like high school. I had a desk, I had a computer. So this is just like my happy place anyway, sitting in front of a giant PC with like all the lights. This is my battle. I'm into this. And so I've actually
this is
done
your battlefield.
Yeah, my what's it called? Battle station. My battle station. So I've done this my whole career, actually.
Yeah.
So it's not different. It's not really too difficult for me, but I do remember when the pandemic sent everyone home, I had some colleagues who were like not used to this, and they had to scramble to buy a laptop stand, and they had to get a chair, and their desk was like weird, or they're working in the kitchen. So it was a tough transition for some folks, but I've actually done this for most of my career.
Yeah. You could see why employees who have had, at least since the pandemic, the ability to do that are very reluctant to go back. I'm not sure exactly why companies want them to go back, except that they built all these buildings. They rent all this real estate.
It's real estate.
And it's real estate, but it's also, I think, a deep-seated fear that they're getting taken advantage of. I know I worry about you, Benito, that you're not putting in the hours that we would expect. No, I don't worry about you, Benito. And I don't worry about Shoshana. Apparently, her problem's overwork. But don't you think that most people, if you're working at home, kind of lackadaisical about working?
I'd be curious to know if there's any, or I was going to say, I'd be curious to know if there's any reliable source of data on that, because ostensibly you would have to self-report or subject to being monitored all day long.
Yeah.
So I can tell you that
if you're on the carpet rolling around with a dog, nobody knows. There is one data point, the rapid rise in sales of mouse jigglers.
Is that real?
Yeah.
Wait, you're talking about like rattlers, right? Is it called the rattler in the truck?
No, mouse jigglers. Something that moves your mouse around so that the monitoring software your employer has installed on your computer thinks you're doing something.
Oh, that's funny.
That's why I like America. What a genius idea.
That's amazing.
In fact, people have gotten fired for using them.
I think it's the employers now on the other side, because when people used to go to the office, they would usually go in early and leave late. So employers always got an extra couple of hours out of their employees before. But now, when you're working at home, you just get your work done and you're done.
Yeah.
And employers don't like that idea. They just don't like the idea, I think. It's nothing else.
It works if you're project focused, like Shoshana is, or Nicholas is, or you are, Benito, where you have a specific task and you get it done. And how long it takes for you to get it done shouldn't matter to your employer as long as you get it done. Here's the story from this summer. Wells Fargo fired some mouse jigglers, some people who worked at Wells Fargo, over a dozen employees, after an internal investigation revealed they were using simulators to simulate keyboard activity, creating an impression of active work.
Wow.
I love that. I really love that.
I have to say, are there jobs where there are no deliverables, like
meetings?
Yes.
Meetings.
Lots of those jobs. Meetings and emails jobs. I call them meetings and email jobs.
They're horrible jobs. Nobody wants to do them. And I understand people trying to escape from them by staying home and making a sandwich. I don't blame them.
I will say, though, one of my friends runs a digital firm called Red Edge, and I'm a huge fan of the stuff they do. They're really ethical in their work, and they think through stuff a lot. So I was talking with my friend there, and he's really big on not having full work from home, that like he wants people to come into the office at least a little bit. Because
there's a certain amount to team building and socializing, right?
It's that, but it's also they come up with better ideas together, where he's like not like inherently opposed to it, but for them, it's like they come up with better work, more creative work. And it's not like they have to be in for 8 hours a day, but they have to come in for at least a little bit, and that it like does help their work. So I've tried to think about it, and he's probably right to a degree, but I really like working in my pajamas all day. And like, it's going to be hard for me to like be motivated to change that when I do good work in pajamas. But like, I do kind of wonder like if our street had more in office time, if like there's stuff that we'd come up with that we wouldn't otherwise, you know?
Steve Jobs thought there was a certain serendipity to having employees in the office, and kind of, he didn't, very famously when they built their new campus, he didn't want bathrooms on every floor because he wanted people walking a long way to the bathroom so they'd run into other employees and have exchanges and exchange ideas. He was kind of a kook.
No, I like my bathrooms close by.
Yeah, I don't want to walk.
I love my bathrooms as close as humanly possible.
I'm actually sad that this attic studio doesn't have a bathroom in it. I'll be honest with you. I have to go downstairs. Scott B in our YouTube chat points out this is the same Wells Fargo that a month later revealed that a woman had been found dead at her desk 4 days after she clocked in. Nobody noticed for 4 days.
Wells Fargo is like the Florida man of business.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I think that was Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. That
oh, well, you know. So we might as well talk about daylight saving time, because it's just, we did it again. And here in the U.S., we do it after everybody else. We do it after Halloween. Reason being, the sugar makers, the candy makers of America, lobbied this is a really interesting lobbied Congress to not do it until after Halloween, so the kids would have more daylight for trick or treating, thereby consuming more candy. So that's a good regulation, Shoshana. Where do you stand on time change regulation?
So I will say you should look into like the sugar industry and like all the subsidies there. It's like really messed up. One of my colleagues works on that, and like you wouldn't believe the stuff that goes on there. So I just think like I love interesting weird lobbies that like control things, like the florist lobby in Louisiana, stuff like that. I'm all over it. But I'm kind of for, and I know this is a little out there, and I might have just changed my mind today. I'm kind of for abolished time zones, but then I found out that China has this, and that they kind of recreate their own informal time zones because they don't like it. So if I'm reinventing the wheel, I'm kind of out of that now. But we should at least like not change the clocks twice a year. There's no reason to do it.
Oh, it's such a nightmare.
Where I grew up, I tell people I'm from Chicago because it is easier to explain than where I'm actually from, which is a tiny corner of Northwest Indiana that called Lake County. We were a tiny blue dot in the middle of a giant...
You grew up in Lake County?
Do you know Lake County?
Oh, very well.
Why?
It's famous for...
it is for a lot of things.
Marriage of cousins.
No. Lake County is famous
I like
for
Lake County. The lake
Gary,
is
Indiana, and among other things. But I grew up in Lake County.
That's a different... I was thinking of Lake County, California, which has another...
No, Lake County
Lake County, Indiana is different.
Little blue speck, and it's like 30 minutes southeast of Chicago. At any rate, my cousins, so my mother's brother, my uncle, lived in a place called South Bend, which is where Notre Dame is.
Oh yes.
So we would go there for holidays, depending on the time of year and the year that it was. Some years, the state of Indiana refused to recognize daylight savings time. some years, each individual county made its own decision about whether or not daylight savings time was going to happen. So literally, and they were 50 minutes away, and depending on like which direction the wind was blowing, we either had to leave 2 hours early or an hour later than we needed to.
That's crazy.
And it changed from year to year. It was a complete pain in the neck.
I remember that because I had a close friend who lived in Convoy, Ohio, which was right on the border of Indiana, and time would change because you went across the state line. Yeah. That was nuts.
It was nuts. And I know it's just an hour and whatever, but if you're a student, that there's actually some pretty significant implications. Or if you're like 10 and you just already don't want to be in the car, and now you've got to schlep all the way to South Bend for family stuff, and it's late. I just bring my pajamas.
So there is a move afoot. In California, we had an initiative that voted to stay on daylight saving time all year round. That carries no weight because it's the federal government that decides what our time zone is, and you can't willy-nilly change your time zone, apparently. I'm not sure. Would we stay? What would we like? Would we like to stay on daylight saving time? I think we liked that because it was summertime, right?
I wonder what the rules are, because I know Arizona, we don't change you
don't change the clock. Yeah,
we're always on Mountain Standard Time. Now, because I coordinate with East Coast a lot and sometimes California, I still have to be cognizant of the time changes and stuff. But here we don't change the clocks. I know in Puerto Rico, where I have a bunch of family, they don't change the clocks. So it is. I feel like we could just pick one. I don't really care which one.
It makes a difference the farther north you are. Right. So if Arizona's fairly southerly, same with Puerto Rico. Yeah. But if you're in Washington State, it could mean that kids are getting up in pitch black and going to school in pitch black, or vice versa. They're coming home in in utter darkness. And so it does make a difference. But the day's going to get shorter no matter what you do. You can't make the day longer.
One other weird effect of it, and since I'm on like so much medication and supplements for all my stuff, I do a lot of random research to understand it better. And it turns out that I think contraception is less effective around, I forget if it's daylight savings or the other one, but because it's you take it an hour later than normal, and then it's then your body it doesn't adjust, right? Because you're supposed to take it at the same time every day, and people don't think to adjust. I'm taking it at 8. Maybe I should start taking it at 7 this half of the year. So that's a weird externality that I think should be accounted for, or even other harsher meds. I'm sure that there's some effects there.
The candy industry, as part of their lobbying effort, put pumpkins filled with candy on the seat of every senator. as a way. By the way, it was also Wall Street that wanted to change time zones, because Wall Street wanted an extra hour of trading, an hour overlap with the London markets trading day. So it wasn't farmers, but it was Wall Street that, according to the USA Today article about this. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This is a archived article from the New York Times. We've been debating this for many years. This is from 2007. Because I wanted to know if it was an urban legend that the candy makers got involved, and apparently it's not.
Surely we can use AI at this point to simulate every argument, every side of things, every potential outcome, and coalesce around.
You said something interesting, though. Do you want no time zones at all?
Well, I didn't say that.
Shoshana said that. Yeah,
I was kind of down for it until I found out that in China, where they don't really have time zones, they kind of recreate their own, and I'm like, okay, never mind. That was a bad
Humans
idea.
need it. But see, so this clock behind me that's UTC. It's 2350. So it would. I mean, I guess you'd get used to it. You'd say, well, the sun sets at 2400 or 30200 in California.
Yeah.
I guess you get used to it, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of here for it. That way no one has to, everyone has the same clock. If the clock is the same everywhere, I mean,
at the very least.
I give out UTC times for all our shows, because then you can figure out when we're on.
At the very least, if we could, it would be great if every country that observes daylight savings time would just do it on the same day.
Well, that's another problem, isn't it?
Because Brazil does it different. I was just in Brazil a couple of days ago, and this time of year is really tricky to schedule meetings because we have to triple check to make sure we're on the right time zone.
I would always miss Champions League games because Europe, they would change their times, different times. So I'm used to it starting at 2:45, and now it's at 1. I was like, oh my God, I missed the first half. It was a real problem for a while there.
Well,
there's got to be an economic again, it always comes down to money, right? So there's got to be a financial reason. My assumption is it would be financially better for everybody to at least coordinate. Maybe I'm missing something though. I don't know.
No. The candy lobby has decided for us. The candy lobby
and Wall Street. By the way, Mexico 2 years ago said no more. We're not changing the clocks, and they didn't change them again, except for Baja, which for some reason, I guess because of tourists, wants to be in sync with the United States. But the rest of Mexico doesn't change their clocks anymore. I would love to stop this. The funny thing is, technology has made it less of an issue because all of our stuff. Except I still had to go around to like the microwave. I'm looking at a clock right now. I don't think it's changed its time because it's kind of a manual clock. So it's a little frustrating. Anyway, I don't know why I got into this. Oh, because you wanted to talk about it.
Well, I suggested
Nicholas.
it. That's why.
It drives us crazy, but we live with it. And so you're saying in China, without time zones, they just made their own up?
Yeah, it's like a local. That's what Twitter was telling me. I didn't have a chance to fact check it, so hopefully
Twitter's
I'm not
almost
wrong.
as good as ChatGPT. I think
Yeah. But someone was saying they used to live there, and that's what happened, which I thought was kind of interesting. And that's stuff I actually like learning about, like when we all kind of come together to make a decision and then just reinvent the wheel a different way. Like that's helpful to know when that's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, and it also tells you something about human nature, which I think is endlessly fascinating. All right, little break, and we'll have more. There have not been a lot of stories this week, and I think it's because everybody's just kind of holding their breath for Tuesday. So we have a few more. It might be a little short show today, which would be, I think, probably a nice little respite for you. That'd be nice. This episode of This Week in Tech brought to you by NetSuite. What does the future hold for your business? So you could ask somebody like Amy Webb, and she'd tell you one thing. Ask 9 other experts, and you're going to get 10 more answers. No one really knows. Rates will fall, rates will rise, inflation's up or down. What we really need is a crystal ball. Actually, Amy sent me a magic 8-ball from the Future Today Institute. I have it right over here. I could query it. But until then, over 38,000 businesses have future-proofed their business with NetSuite from Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, all into one easy-to-use, fluid platform. And that's nice because with one unified business management suite, there's a single source of truth, giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. With real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future. Maybe you do have that crystal ball with actionable data. When you're closing the books in days, not weeks, you're spending less time looking backwards. You're spending more time on what's coming up next. Honestly, if I had a bigger enterprise, I would be using this for sure. Maybe you should consider it. Speaking of the opportunity, I want you to download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning. NetSuite's now offering this for free at netsuite.com/twit. That's the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning. Free at netsuite.com/twit. We thank Oracle and NetSuite for supporting the show. netsuite.com/twit. I'm going to go over and get my magic 8-ball here. I have it right here on the shelf. Do you remember sending these out?
Oh yeah, I totally do. We
ask a question. Just let's see. I'll shake the Future Today Institute Magic 8-ball. What's going to happen on Tuesday? That's a big one, right? It says, it's upside down.
I think it only takes yes or no questions, Leo.
No, it takes all kinds of questions.
It says read the trend report. I think that's a good suggestion. Of course, Future Today Institute does this fabulous trend report, and you can see that online at their website, futuretodayinstitute.com. So there you go. That's a good answer, Magic.
That's a good answer.
Does it say it to everything?
No, it's sometimes it says give us a call. Sometimes it says like make some scenarios.
Here's one that says accept uncertainty. That's really the answer I should have gotten.
Yeah.
For Tuesday, accept uncertainty.
Yeah.
Thank you for.
Thank you for playing with it. I should have put a speaker in there and a microphone.
Yeah, you could have listened. It's about the size of a Siri HomePod.
Yeah.
I could put it right next to that.
So, did I detect that you were about to say something about Apple Intelligence?
Oh, I did. Now,
here's
for
a
anybody
fun
to
thing.
answer this, you have to be an Apple user, and I don't know if you all are. So you got a new iPhone?
Yeah. So I ordered it. It took a month to get here.
Oh no!
And then I was gone for like 2 weeks. So this thing has been sitting in a box, and I just have to find some time on my calendar to actually open it. But does this? Has anybody actually used it yet?
I have. There's some very interesting stories. We were talking about this Tuesday on MacBreak Weekly. When I first turned it on, one of the things it does, Apple Intelligence right now is at 18.1. iOS 18.1, and it's very limited. Mostly, it does a summary of notifications, things like that. Mark Gurman has said today in his newsletter, he's the number one Apple rumor guy, and usually correct, said that 18.2 will come out early in December, like December 5th, which is interesting because that is going to have a lot more to it. But this one does summaries of your email. It'll summarize a document or do bullet points on a document. But the notification roll-up is kind of funny. I showed this on the show the other day. Actually, it's still saying it. It says 5 to 10. I don't know if you can see this. This was from last night. 5 to 10 people are at your front door.
What?
Now, what's really going on there is it's rolling up a bunch of doorbell or front door movement from Ring, which is probably somebody just coming and going. But it says 5 to 10 people are at your front door. There's also the very funny story of the. Whoops, let me escape out of this. The very funny story of the programmer. Let me see if I can find it on Twitter, who got broken up with by text messaging, and Apple Intelligence. Let me see if I can find this breakup, and I'll show you what he learned. He was being dumped. This is from Ars Technica by AI summary of texts. Nick got his 01. For anyone who wondered what Apple Intelligence summary of a breakup text looks like, it's this. And this is legit. No longer in a relationship, wants belongings from the apartment. Nick says, yes, this is real. Yes, it happened yesterday. Yes, it was my birthday.
Brutal.
Now, it was a fair summary of the texts he had received from his girlfriend. So, I mean, I don't know if you blame Apple Intelligence for that. Something for you to look forward to, Amy.
Yeah, yes, that sounds super fun for me.
I have talked to some people who have used the summary feature. Somebody said on one of our shows that because executives always want bullet point summaries, there is a nice little bullet point feature that you could take a document and say, make bullet points out of this and give it to the boss. So that I think people will use that. The good news is when it's pulling from a source like that, it's not likely to hallucinate because it's basically taking only what's in that document and summarizing that, right? So you excited, Amy?
Well, the battery, I'm excited to have a better battery situation and a less slow device. So there's that. Yeah. But yeah, no, I've been very intrigued, and I'm always eager to play with every company's latest, newest thing, So I'm looking forward to it. I just have to find time. Maybe Apple Intelligence can create time on maybe I can have a daily daylight savings extra hour of time somehow through Apple Intelligence.
Wouldn't that be
I'll
cool?
have time to like unbox things.
Nicholas, are you an iPhone user or a Android guy? You seem like an Android guy.
No, I'm an iPhone. I mean, I don't care as much. I am an iPhone guy. I've been an iPhone guy since iPhone 4 was the first one I got.
Wow.
So a while. I actually haven't upgraded to iOS 8. I've had other things going on, so it hasn't been a priority, to be honest. I'll probably put it on my iPad tonight when we're done here to check it out. But I'm just kind of like, I really don't use these tools that often anyway. Like I use ChatGPT honestly mostly for like cooking stuff. So
do you ask it for recipes?
Oh, I ask it for recipes. I ask it for like, if we're trying to eat foods that doesn't cause inflammation, what are these foods and what dishes can I make? Because I
is
cook
it pretty
almost
accurate?
every day. As far as I can tell, I mean, I do try to like fact check important things, but for most silly things, it doesn't really matter that much. So that's where I
should I eat shrimp if I have a shellfish allergy? Yes, shrimp is one of the few foods you can eat if you have a shrimp. Right. No, it's not. No. Okay.
Actually, here's a question because I've never seen this before. Are there disclaimers saying we're not offering medical device? But does it do that in writing?
Not medical specifically, but it says don't trust anything you get back from. Here is what's at the bottom of my ChatGPT screen. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info.
Or like in the search. So if you search for like, what are some foods that I should be able to eat? It doesn't say that per search. It just has that general warning at the bottom of the main page.
Well, get ready because on Halloween, ChatGPT introduced a kind of scary thing. ChatGPT Search. This is the thing Google was most afraid of, is that people would start searching the web. ChatGPT, until recently, was only aware of stuff in its training data. So at some point you cut off the training and it doesn't know anything after that point. But in this case, it's going to be, I guess, somehow connected to the net and we'll be able to be up to date.
I also would be remiss if I didn't say that different people have different inflammatory foods. I've learned this very hard. So all different inflammatory diets are lies for some people.
Oh, no.
I know. It's sad. You have to
do a FODMAP or something to find out what's bothering
you. You have to do trial and error. FODMAP doesn't work for me at all. Chickpeas are my poison. I don't know why, but they are.
Send me all your chickpeas. I love them.
I love them, but they hate me.
That means no falafel, no hummus.
I can't. My whole body inflames from chickpeas.
Oh, some of the best things in the world. Halva. Oh, no, that's sesame seeds.
Yeah.
Okay. Although sometimes there's a little bit of hummus in a halva. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell. When there's,
You go. I didn't ask you, do you use an iPhone, Shoshana?
No, Android, mostly because I'm cheap.
Yeah. My daughter, who is the lone holdout in my family, is an Android user. But she's gotten around this lack of AI by downloading an app, a Russian app, that's a little friend. And she says, oh, I love this. She's so good. And she talks to it all the time and says, I think she really gets me. It's a little concerning.
Yeah.
So I can now search. What should I don't know. Should I search for? Let me see on this. There's a button. You click the button. All right. Let's search for Saturday Night Live. I don't know. That's a trending search. So now I'm getting a whole summary of the history of Saturday Night Live, but also getting the November 2nd episode, last night's episode. So that's interesting. It's just proving it's up to date, right? Let's see. Are chickpeas...
I was going to say, I don't want to be too on brand, but yeah.
Inflammatory. Let's see what it says. Generally considered anti-inflammatory, you see? But, however, for some individuals or with certain autoimmune conditions or sensitivity to legumes... Chickpeas are bad.
It's not legumes. It's just chickpeas for me.
Just chickpeas.
Just chickpeas.
Isn't it funny that they're branded as an anti-inflammatory food?
I know a lot of anti-inflammatory food destroys me. It's funny. But it's interesting too that they mention this without as many disclaimers, because if I type in ideas for medical issues, they're like, "Oh no, don't ask us medical questions." And I'm like, "I know, but give me some info here." Yeah.
Maybe they're more confident now. I don't know. This is the latest model, 4.0.
That's cool.
Yeah. I don't know. Is this a threat to Google? Is this what people are going to do instead of searching?
I don't know if it's going to necessarily siphon off daily traffic at the moment, but what it does is reset the expectation for what search should be.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is Google made some choices about its own search and its display graph and everything else. And as we all know, it's been very hard to find what you're actually looking for now on Google, because you have to sift through pages of totally unrelated shopping ads and pictures of things. And then you get to the end of the page and it's like, well, are you sure? Did you actually want more things to show?
Google's basically shitified itself.
Yeah. Agreed.
And which is sad. The guy who some hold responsible for this has moved on, Prabhakar Raghavan. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe it'll get better. I don't think it will. I think he came from the sales side and, according to some, was anxious to make search more financially rewarding. And as a result, did exactly what you just described. Now, I just tried ChatGPT Search for the same search I did with Google earlier, which is Apple Intelligence breakup texts. And instead of getting the article I was looking for, I got some suggestions. So if you're looking for guidance or examples of thoughtful breakup messages, here are a few crafted with care. Gentle and honest. Hey, I've been thinking a lot lately, and I feel it's best if we have an honest talk. You mean a lot to me, but I feel we're growing in different directions. It's not easy to say, but I think parting ways would be healthier for us.
Leo,
both.
I'm more interested in your horoscope. What was your horoscope?
Oh, you want to know? Well, okay, so I am not a Leo, but because my name is Leo, it gave me Leo's horoscope. So all I said was, "What's my horoscope today?" And it instead of saying, "What's your birthday?" it said, "Oh, your name's Leo, so you must be a Leo." Right? So that's not so bright. Let's see what it does now.
That's funny.
Yeah. As a Leo, today's horoscope. See, I'm not a Leo. So, okay. At least it does one thing which I like, which is it gives you sources. So let's see what the sources were. They were the Scottish Sun. First place I go to read my horoscope, that's for sure. Astrology.com and Yahoo. That's so interesting that it's using the Scottish Sun. Do you think it has a deal? Oh, this is a Murdoch Sun. Or is it?
Is it?
I don't know.
Speaking of Yahoo, Marissa Mayer's out there peddling a new AI tool. Have you seen that?
So I knew this was coming from Marissa because, she started this company called Sunshine.
Well, that's it.
But originally it was just a contact manager, right? But I knew there was a play. You're not going to make any money selling a contact manager. So what is she doing?
The way it's being positioned is that she's an AI pioneer. She's been in the field, all of her products, which okay, fine. It sounds like it's have you ever heard of something called Life 360? It's a geofencing tool that you can set locations and then have a trusted circle. And anytime you come or go from any of those places, it automatically lets you know.
Narcs on you?
It does. It sounds to me like it's some version of that, but like a media management platform, maybe. That is meant to be sort of private.
I'm puzzled because
I'm probably not describing this. No, I'm definitely not describing it the way that they would describe it. But
so after they introduced the contact manager, or was it a calendar? I used it briefly, and
I thought it felt more like a
contacts.
Yeah.
Now and then they introduced Shine a couple of months ago, which got a lot of, especially on Product Hunt, a lot of negativity saying, "Why? What have you done that's different or new?
Yeah,
this is terrible."
But Leo, it's AI.
It's AI, and now it looks like they're doing events. So it's a pivot upon a pivot upon a pivot. And yes, look, these are AI generated images, aren't they? So is Shine now unique? It's changed completely. So it was a photo sharing site, intuitive group photo sharing, flawlessly organized events. Now I visit Shine, and it looks like it's like Meetup.
Oh,
this is very.
Is that the right
a good sign.
site? That's not what
I licked it directly from Sunshine. Was in this. Maybe I got the wrong. Have I done something wrong? No, I'm pretty sure this is Marissa Mayer.
I don't know. A lot of crappy sites get big write-ups. Like every worst dating app that exists that has no users has like a big profile. So like, yeah, this looks really stupid if I'm being real. Like I don't usually I'm harsh, but I'm not usually this harsh on something, but this looks really stupid. Like really stupid.
I really wish Marissa Mayer well. She was an early employee at Google, is widely considered responsible for the streamlined early days Google search page. There was always the stories about how obsessive she was about getting every detail just right, including the colors in the Google logo and so forth. Then Yahoo came a-calling, and she went to be CEO trying to save Yahoo, which was at the time, I think, even then, kind of a quixotic mission. I don't think Yahoo was that savable, although they have kind of survived a little bit with a few of their properties. And now she went with one of her engineers from Yahoo, I think somebody she knew at Google as well, Enrique, what's his last name? They don't mention his last name, just the first name, to start Sunshine. When Enrique and Marissa discussed starting a company, it says on the website, these were the questions they came to focus on. Why are our phone lists, calendars, texts, and emails so disorganized? Yeah, maybe they didn't know about AI or think about it at the time, but that's definitely an AI play. Why is it still hard to keep up with a friend's job and address changes? Why aren't artificial intelligence and other new technologies being used to reinvent these everyday social tasks? I think there's an opportunity there. I don't think this is it, but
yeah,
it's an interesting idea. I really do wish her well. I just don't feel like she's really found anything great to replace Google with. Here's a story from CNN. If you've been seeing more pro-Harris ads online lately, here's why. Why, Nicholas D. Leon?
I guess they just bought a lot of ads.
A lot of money.
Yeah, man. Like I said, this is the first time I'm living in a swing state during an election, and the sheer volume of ads on YouTube in particular was very surprising to me. And it is so silly where it's like one commercial is, John Smith is a jerk, and the very next commercial is John Smith is an angel sent from heaven to save. So I'm just sitting there like, this is ridiculous. Like this this is the democracy that is in peril, I guess.
This is a CNN story focusing on a particular PAC, the Future Forward PAC, which is the largest single candidate super PAC in the election. Harris herself has raised, I believe, a bit more than $1 billion for her own campaign. But then thanks to Citizens United, these PACs can come in with essentially unlimited budgets. The Future Forward PAC is focusing half of its $450 million budget on digital platforms, including what it says is the largest political ad buy in YouTube history. Used to be these campaigns were real boons for local radio and television. Right. And I think it probably still is if anybody watches local radio and television. But it was only a matter of time before they realized, nobody's watching TV. They're all watching YouTube. So
I have a question. I don't know if anybody can answer this, or maybe this is an obvious answer and I'm out of the loop. So the volume of text messages, we are getting a lot of text messages.
Yeah.
From a particular campaign.
Me too. Yes.
So do the carriers make money on that? Does somebody have to pay the carrier, or the carriers?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like somebody's making money, because that's a lot of money to send all that stuff, right? Maybe Twilio is doing some of the automation, but like on the other side of it, does AT&T wireless get paid for all those text messages that literally nobody wants ever?
I don't know that I've seen that reported, actually. That's an interesting question.
I'm just curious. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the telecom companies get paid, and then there's like firms that handle it, just like with email marketing. And it's funny because I've never really dug in deep, but like
I don't know. I mean, I wonder if the telcos are basically just like the pipes, and they're not making it. It's the services on top of that are making the money.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much they make on it. I would guess that it would have to be some amount, but just how much? Like enough for them to like want to deal with this stuff. Like I'm not totally sure,
So this is a Time magazine article from this summer. Before political campaigns can send mass text messages, they're required to register with a relevant text messaging registry to verify the legitimacy of the campaign, ensure compliance with industry standards for opt-in and opt-out procedures. That's that stop message that you can send if you don't want to continue to get texts from that particular number. This is mandated by the CTIA, which is the Wireless Communications Trade Association, and U.S. carriers. Once a campaign receives approval from the registry, they can use a mass texting service provider, Twilio, Podium, there are many of them, to deliver messages on behalf of the campaign from a dedicated phone number. I'm sure that there is some money going to the carriers for this.
Wait, so if you text stop and it doesn't stop, that means it's not legitimate?
Well, that's my thinking. I made that up, but I think there also is a timeout. So, but if you I think if you answer stop right away and it doesn't, it's supposed to right away say, okay, we're going to stop, Uncle. I believe if it doesn't do that, that they are not an approved messenger. Yeah.
Joanna had a good story in the Journal the other day on trying to opt out of these text messages and stop, and they just keep coming and coming. So it feels like maybe not the best regulated.
Stop only blocks that one number. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. Run a campaign for $1,000 with text marketing from easytexting.com. Okay. Ping, Harris, and Trump are blowing up your phones with political texts in the campaign's last days. This is the Associated Press. This came out on Halloween. Texting is cheap and an easy way to reach potential voters. By the way, you'd think they're getting that information about you from the donor rolls, which are by federal law public, but they're also buying, according to Time, they're buying information from data brokers as well, which helps them narrow it down, right? They want to know before they message you whether you're likely to be supportive. Texting doesn't have the same rules that broadcasting does. Both sides are working the texting pipeline aggressively, says this story. But that's a very good question, is where is the money flowing?
One thing I thought was interesting, these started ramping up for me maybe in June, July, getting a phone call. A lot of the phone calls are labeled as spam. It'll say like possible spam.
Right.
I pick it up anyway because I think it's fun to answer the polls. Frankly, I'm that weirdo that likes to answer the polls. But they have completely dried up over the past, like I would say last Tuesday, Wednesday. I stopped getting. I was getting like 2 or 3 a day, a combination of phone calls or text messages, and they've kind of. I haven't gotten one in about a week, so I don't know if they're thinking Arizona is finished one way or the other. Because I'm technically a registered independent, a Hispanic registered independent. So I was
you're
calls.
Golden, aren't you, buddy? You are everybody's fair-haired boy. You say, yes, we'd like your vote.
So I was getting it really dried up last week. So again, maybe folks think the game is over here one way or the other. I have no idea, but it stopped here.
This story from AP does say there's a lot of fraudulent texting, not so much from scammers trying to get your money, but from opposition trying to change your vote or keep you from voting. The League of Women Voters this month of Wisconsin wrote to the U.S. and state attorneys general to report that thousands of fraudulent text messages from an anonymous source were sent to young people threatening $10,000 fines or prison time if they vote in a state where they're not eligible to cast ballots. It was intended to intimidate students from out of state who are legally entitled to vote in Wisconsin if they're going to college there, to keep them from voting, or to get them out of the state and have them vote back home instead. Last weekend, thousands of Pennsylvania voters received a text message that falsely claimed they'd already voted. This is from the Philadelphia Inquirer. This came from AllVote, which election officials have repeatedly flagged as a scam. The group said the false claim was a result of a typo.
I've gotten AllVote text messages, a couple over the summer, and I would say them as they were not misleading, but again, the language they use, it's like, oh, we noticed you haven't voted. It's like, who are you to like just leave me alone? Like this whole like the voting industrial complex of all these get out the vote organizations, it feels very scammy to me. I'm not really comfortable with a lot of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of them are using the same kind of verbiage and emotional appeal that scam messengers use, the pig butchers use, that the people who are trying to take your money use. Oh my God, if you got to do it today, it's terrible. Like I said, if that could just put a switch on my phone that says, I don't want these.
That kind of stuff drives me nuts. Cause I used to work more on the political side, and that's when I started like working in digital, that's when a lot of people were trying to do the like urgency and stuff like that, emails. And it's when it kind of all began. And I was like, hey guys, like maybe we think about doing it like in an ethical way, because this is one, easily replicable, if nothing else. And two, like, I can't imagine that this is going to work for very long. Like people get tired of urgency, understandably, over time. There was just never really any interest in people trying to be more ethical about it or do it better because it was just easy money. But there's data showing that it might be drying up because the older generation isn't donating anymore and is aging out of life. And the next older generation is kind of already used to this and knows it's scams. So, or it's not what the message says it is. So I'm kind of wondering like how political fundraising evolves past the scammy kind of messages.
I'm assuming there are going to be protests either way next week.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And the weeks that follow.
It's going to be ugly.
What technology do you think is going to get used? So I guess Twitter isn't banning words anymore or censoring anything. So that seems like a good network that people will be using either way, right? I mean, look, 4 years ago,
it's nice of you to say either way, but I think one side was much more likely to use Twitter to spread doubt about the result of the election than another.
Or to organize a protest because, look, if Trump wins, I think the other side.
You think Democrats will organize protests?
I think they demonstrate versus protest.
Right.
I think that there will be civic action either way. And I guess suddenly, as I was listening to everybody, I was like, well, there's mobile phones organizing. WhatsApp. I guess people aren't using Facebook, or at least they don't seem to be using. So 4 years ago, social media was still being used for this kind of thing.
Facebook has very, very definitely tried to opt out of this. They've stopped doing news, and they really don't want a lot of political content.
Right. So that was kind of my question. Like, what's the organizing? How, you know what I mean? Like, what are people using? What are the young kids these days using? Because I don't know.
Yeah. Instagram, but Instagram is Meta, and I don't believe they encourage that kind of content.
The answer is TikTok, right?
Discord, maybe Discord.
Yeah.
Well, that's by the way, that's a separate problem, which is that Telegram, Discord, and other messaging apps are below the radar. They're not really public apps, and so we don't know. I mean, maybe I hope somebody knows. I hope somebody's paying attention, but we don't know about all the traffic and activities going on out of the public eye. There are lots of Telegram groups with all sorts of skeezy motives. One of our Club TWiT members says there's an excellent podcast episode about this. Bandercat says Vox's Today Explained podcast last Sunday did a whole episode on why do I keep getting these weird fundraising texts. So I think that might be something you want to listen to. Where they're talking about why there are so many urgent texts asking for money. I haven't listened to it, but Bandercat says it's very good and explains all. The Atlantic does have Charlie Wartzel, who is, let's face it, a lefty. Has a long article in The Atlantic about this is what $44 billion buys you, talking about how Elon will use and has used X during this campaign, and what he might use it for if Trump loses. And I can imagine that it would be used as an organizing tool, yes? Elon's going to be pretty miffed. He spent millions of dollars to support Trump in a variety of ways, including some ways that have gotten him in a little bit of trouble with the state.
I mean, he said that if Trump loses, I think he was talking to Tucker. If Trump loses, like he's in trouble.
It's stolen.
He feels like, he feels like he's in big trouble. Which I guess
That Musk is in big trouble.
Yeah, Elon said that if Trump loses, he thinks he will be in big trouble. Which is maybe he was joking. I mean, you can't tell when he's joking.
You never know. What
but they were
Elon's
talking
thinking.
about taking away his citizenship, right, or denying his
interesting
citizenship because of some of the.
Yeah, so
interference.
I think this is pretty de minimis, but he was a student. He was in the country on a student visa and was working and not going to school. So I guess technically they could revoke his. Is he a citizen now or a resident? I'm not sure which he is.
There are immigrants who got deported for much less.
That's true.
Can I just pile on a teeny tiny bit because I've been thinking a lot about this lately?
Okay.
Did anybody ever watch the show Big Love on HBO?
Yes, all about the polyamorous Mormon sect. Yeah.
So it was, I thought, really good. And there was a breakaway person trying to be more modern, trying to live out in the open. That was played by Bill Paxton, who had in Utah bought 3 adjacent properties. So 3 adjacent homes, ostensibly in a cul-de-sac, because they shared a backyard. And then sort of
each wife was in a different home, and he'd run back and forth exhaustedly.
And exhausted, but everybody had a different night. It's actually a really great show.
It is.
At any rate, a lot of the tension.
My wife
on that
said
show,
I enjoyed it just because it was a fantasy for me, but no, that's not why I enjoyed it at all. They don't make it particularly.
No, it's not
appealing.
sexual at all. No. It's a drama. It's really clever and smart. At any rate, one of the driving, animating forces of that show was regulation and escaping the police, and this is illegal and everything else. So my question, dear listeners and panelists, is: has Elon Musk not done the exact same thing? He just bought 3 adjacent homes, did he not? Where he's
a compound. He's invited all of his wives, and there's many children, 11 children, to all live together in harmony in Texas.
In different homes. How is that different from what played out on Big Love? For real.
Because he didn't marry them. And that's a good question. Does he plan to go down and visit? I don't know if he'll have. Grimes, by the way, has declined. Has declined his offer to come and live on the compound. But his first wife is down there, and then the chief executive of his of Neuralink, I think, has gone down with her. I mean, it's a legitimate question. I've been thinking a lot about this. If I had infinite money and I had infinite children and a somewhat less infinite number of wives. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. You get a little compound down there in Boca Chica. I think it's different if he's married to them. It's not illegal to have multiple baby mamas. Well, I guess Big Love, look, I'm not an expert in Mormonism, but I think that there's like the one legal marriage and then the celestial marriages, right? Right. But Elon is not a bigamist. Nobody says he's a bigamist. I don't know. It's again, like, it's reminiscent of the idea. Yes. It sure is. The only difference was Elon owns a rocket company and a car company and a social media site, and Bill Paxton owned hardware stores. But otherwise, very similar. Very similar. Very similar. And Elon has many, many more children. Let's take a break. There are a few more. I apologize. There's just nothing happening. So we have a few stories, but this is giving us scope to talk about a broader range of topics. And I think that's been fun. A little later on, we're going to have Shoshana explain why she loves sloths so very much. Because she is chairman of the Sloth Committee. Shoshana Weissmann is here from rstreet.org, from Consumer Reports. Nicholas De Leon, he is their senior electronics reporter. And because he covers electronics, that means coffee machines as well. Apparently. Love that. And from the Future Today Institute, the wonderful Amy Webb. It's great to have all three of you. Our show today brought to you by ZipRecruiter. We actually use ZipRecruiter when we're hiring. You know, hiring is a tough thing because what happens is somebody gives you notice, they're leaving. Now you've got a vacancy. You've got a hole to fill, and that means more work for everybody. There's kind of this urgency, but it gets harder and harder to get great candidates because you're not the only ones hiring. And if you're a good candidate, there's a lot of people saying, hey, come work for us. There are a lot of different kinds of offices out there. One thing's for certain. Choosing the right, I'll couch my terms carefully, but choosing the right candidate for any office is a huge responsibility, right? Well, if you're hiring and you want to find the best candidates for your office, get it? You need ZipRecruiter. Right now, you can try it for free. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. Actually, ZipRecruiter is fantastic. It's the hiring site employers prefer the most, according to G2. How fast does ZipRecruiter's smart technology start showing your job to qualified candidates? Immediately. You click that mouse on ZipRecruiter, immediately your posting goes to hundreds of social media sites and job sites, and it just goes, they cast the widest possible net. And that means it's much more likely that a great candidate's going to see your posting, but it gets better because ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology then works to find the best top talent for you, saving you time and money. They actually say, we found 5 people who match your needs. You look at them and go, wow, 2 of these are really great candidates. And then you invite them to apply for your job, which works really, really well because everybody likes to be invited. It's flattering. Oh, they want me to work for them. This is how you get the best candidates fast. And I mean fast. We post in the morning, at breakfast, before lunch. I can remember it vividly. This is how we got our wonderful Viva in our continuity department. Lisa's worried because we're going to be down a person. She goes, oh, here's a great candidate. Oh, here's another one, all before lunch. Remember, if you want to find the right candidates for your office, you need ZipRecruiter. See why 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Go right now to our special web address to try it for free, ZipRecruiter.com/twit. That's ZipRecruiter.com/twit. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Thank you, ZipRecruiter. We appreciate your support. And in case we do ever start hiring again, we'll be using ZipRecruiter. That's for sure. For a long time, it's bugged me a little bit. Meta has used the term for its Llama LLM, open source AI. And I've always thought, it's not what open source means to me. It means that the source code is available. You can look at it. You can fork it. You can create your own product. Well, now the OSI, the folks who are really in charge of the open source definition, the open source initiative, have released an official definition. And no surprise, Llama is not open source. There are some that are. Let me read you the criteria, according to the OSI. For an AI system to be truly open source, it has to provide access to details about the data used to train the AI so that others can understand and recreate it. I don't know how viable that is. They also need the complete code used to build and run the AI. That's the traditional definition of open source, right? And this is, I think, maybe most important. The settings and weights from the training, which help the AI produce its results. This is while Llama is publicly available, you can download and use it, but you can't use it commercially. It doesn't give access to the training data. It doesn't tell you its weights. Amy, you agree that this definition is accurate?
So what I have read is that the organization that has created the open standards, it's what, OSI, right?
OSI, the Open Source Initiative.
Has said that there is no singular definition of AI, which is incorrect. Stanford and others have very clearly aligned on definitions for AI. And, have said that unless Llama reveals its training data, that they no longer will be certified. And I guess my response to that is, so what?
Well,
there's no way to.
But Mark has been using this term open source AI for quite a while, and I think it's kind of unfair of him to do that. I I don't know if he could.
You think he's going to stop?
No.
But that's
it's appropriate for the people who are open. Yeah, but okay, but
Yeah.
it's appropriate for people who are, responsible for open source to say, no, let's be clear. This does
Right.
not
I think
match our criteria.
The Hugging Face folks stepped in and said, this is a great thing. We love this clarification, but they compete against Llama.
Right.
I don't know. Very few, open source does not mean totally free.
No, and notice there
right?
is no mention in here about free.
So I think that there's some amount of conflating. What do we mean by open source, which would imply we're going to give you, everything so that people can build upon, use things in new ways, which is clearly not what's happening.
But maybe I'm wrong, but I do believe that if we said, no, AI needs to be open source for us to support it,
yeah,
that would be an improvement, wouldn't it, over closed AI that we don't know really how it's been generated from large corporations?
In the business world, open source is fine for sandboxed experimentation, but anything beyond that is understandably, concerning.
Is that true for open source software as well?
We don't do a ton of work on the IT side in the general software side of things, but yes, when it comes to AI, absolutely. And there's a move towards more agentic models. So looking for, instead of one single vendor, like using different systems and tools together, but the open source piece of it, I can tell you, is unsettling for a lot of larger corporations.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So I don't know what the continued it just seems like a weird, this seems like a weird fight to have from my point of view.
I've wanted that clarification though, just so that people, because otherwise I think there's if Mark says it's open source, it must be open source. It's important for the open source community to say, no, that's just Mark's marketing term. It isn't open source. There's a separate discussion over whether AI should ever be open source or whatever. But I think it's appropriate to take Mark to task to say you're misrepresenting what you're doing.
Well, I think this perfectly illustrates this moment that we are living through, which is that much of what's happening in AI in public is about marketing and hype.
Right.
More so than anything else. OpenAI has been calling itself a generative AI, not generative,
AGI.
Thank you. It's too many acronyms. Artificial general intelligence company now for at least 8 months or so. And it's,
that's not. And
no. So I think that there is some amount of desire to differentiate between everybody else and what everybody else is doing. And let's not forget Facebook or whatever, Meta, is coming to the party with a hefty amount of baggage that it's carrying in the public eye because of some previous
bad behavior.
Yeah. So using that's a semantic twist, and using open source feels a little bit more friendly and
right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and they are open to the extent that they let you download their model and use it, but that's the only in the only way they're open. And you can't use it for commercial purposes either. So I did actually want to ask you, Amy, because I know you have a lot of experience with China. You lived in China for a while. And we've seen this brewing trade war going back and forth for some years. We've talked about it on the show before with you. You may remember that DJI, the Chinese drone manufacturer, has been sanctioned by the Commerce Department, and there seems to be a move to keep them from selling their drones into the U.S. Now, China has responded by sanctioning Skydio, which is, I think, one of the few U.S. drone manufacturers. And this is a big deal for Skydio because they get a lot of their components, their parts, from China. It might also be a big deal for Ukraine because Ukraine uses Skydio drones in their efforts against Russia.
Yeah. So again, I think November is a weird time to be doing that.
Well, are they trying to disrupt the election? We talked a lot about disinformation.
Yeah, but I look, of all of the enormous constellation of technologies that would concern me, I got to say drones are not at the top of my list for the election right now. So again, I'm wondering if some people in the current administration and the various agencies have a negative outlook on their future. given where we're at, and maybe they're trying to quickly make their mark, or maybe not make their mark, but like have impact that they've been wanting to have.
You're talking about the U.S. Commerce Department's sanctions on DJI.
Yeah. Now, China's response, that's pretty par for the course. When we levy sanctions, this is how they respond now. And it's not like we have, 150 different drone manufacturers. Like we're kind of...
Well, that's why it's kind of... there are unintended consequences to a trade war like this. It goes both ways. Mm-hmm. If you fire shots may well be fired back. And I've always thought that our relationship with China, our deep economic ties with China, are good for peace because we're dependent on one another. But those ties get broken.
The United States has made a pretty big and public call for chips to be manufactured, not just by TSMC, but in places outside of Taiwan.
Right.
There's been sort of a rearranging of warships in the area over the past couple of months.
Do you think it's likely that China will invade Taiwan anytime soon?
So interesting you should ask that. One of the things that I would say to everybody is now is a really great time to be doing scenario planning. And you don't have to...
As a company, as a business.
Or just as a person. You don't have to do this professionally to allow yourself to think the unthinkable, even if it makes you uncomfortable. And then to think through, what if... Well, but not in a way that you're like catastrophizing, more in a way that you're being sort of as objective as you can, and non-emotive, to just really think through, well, what are the potential outcomes? Yeah. I got together with some friends and we were working through in a world, and I can't tell you who the friends are or what the circumstances were, but I can tell you what the outcomes were. We were doing something called the Axes of Uncertainty, which is a tool that we developed that looks at tons of different variables and asks if these variables are present. There's two axes. If these sets of variables are present at the same time, and usually they're highly non-correlating, then what could be the next possible outcomes? And the purpose of doing this is to sort of break free from the current constraints and see if we can get to places where like, oh, we never thought of that before. And so we looked at a ton of different variables and factors in a Trump administration or a Harris administration. Some of the people that were part of this exercise are part of government. Let's say they're some folks in Congress. We had some folks at DOD and some others. Interestingly, what we determined was that the world may actually, in the very, very near term, we may be safer with a Trump administration because for two reasons. One, Trump, foreign leaders have no idea how Trump is going to react.
It's unpredictable. Yeah.
He's not unpredictable like in a cool way. He's just, he's got a different group of people behind him this time, but he's totally capricious and bendable, like malleable. Therefore, that alone is deterrence. That alone serves as deterrence.
Sure.
And then the second thing was...
it serves as deterrence if that person also has access to a massive nuclear arsenal. Right. I mean, it's only deterrent because of the United States military might.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But the second interesting thing was he's kind of an isolationist. So he's more likely to just be like, whatever, Taiwan... It's cool. Like I don't want to get involved, or pulling out of NATO, which we've already seen, right? Pulling out of some of these conflicts. Do
you think that's more stabilizing?
That's what I said. So what's interesting coming out of this was in the next, let's say 2 to 4 years, it's actually more stabilizing. However, it reorganizes geopolitical and economic power in a way that it creates instability after that.
Well, as an example, in his last term, Russia invaded Crimea. And
would they have done that if he had not been in power? And the answer is probably they would have waited.
Right. So that's interesting because that does seem like a destabilizing action.
That particular one, yes, because of the relationship that he seems to have with Putin. So yeah, I thought anytime there's I find contradictions really interesting because it's like, oh, shit, I never thought through that before. So look, I don't know. What I would encourage everybody to do who's listening in, regardless of when you're listening to this, is just allow yourself to ask the question, what if? And this is not about branching over into like conspiracy theory. It's just being very sort of honest. Asking what if over and over and over again, and being ruthlessly objective and thinking the unthinkable. And then once you get to the end of that chain of what ifs, great. Now what? Right? What do I do? And what are the outcomes? It's a good way of just, preparing for things.
Isaac Asimov's foundation relies upon the notion that it's possible to predict the future. Harry Seldon is what is the term?
Psychohistorian.
Psychohistorian.
Yeah.
And is able to predict the future and quite effectively thousands of years into the future. It's a conceit that whenever I read that book, I think, that's insane. That's obviously not possible. There's way too many variables.
No, but I mean, yes, you can't predict. Yes, his predict the future of everything is not quite right. But if you have the right information, you can create multiple scenarios that have higher probabilities, right?
Right.
And then you have to sort of be willing to constantly.
I don't know how you act on them because, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
One way or the other. We'll find out. Do you cover drones as well, Nicholas? I mean, is that part of it?
No, I haven't looked at drones really.
There's a guy in our chat who's,
many years.
I think, probably typical, saying, I'm not going to buy a DJI drone because its future's uncertain. I may not be able to use a new one in the United States, and that actually is a possibility. That hurts its business, obviously. Well, we'll see what happens. You think the old Chinese curse, "May you live in interesting times," is in effect?
Feels like it.
Feels like it. The CHIPS Act actually has been, which is weird, somewhat of a non-success. According to a Politico, only one grant of $125 million out of that billions, 39 billions in subsidies has been awarded. This law was passed in 2022, and so far, the first award is $123 million to Polar Semiconductor in Minnesota.
Wait, so it's hard. Look, it's been 18 months. There's $52 billion that's been earmarked, and some of that's for R&D and some of that's for other things. It's actually, it takes time to allocate all of that money.
And the intent of it was to build a U.S. chip power, make the U.S. more of a chip
hopefully
power, right?
More, yeah, to build, to reshore, oops, I keep knocking this microphone, to reshore and to start building capabilities here. Yeah. Japan has actually done the same thing, not through through different legislation, and I believe the first manufacturing plant, which was created in partnership with TSMC, has already been spun up.
And Intel has received or is going to receive quite a bit of money. Yeah.
Is it? After
should it? Should it?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's up in the air. That's another thing that might be decided by an election because House Speaker Mike Johnson says the GOP will probably try to repeal the CHIPS Act.
And let me just
streamline it.
Nothing makes me more crazy. So before the Biden administration, I was asked to write one of the transition papers. So for the transition team, I was asked to write a paper for how's the best way to prepare given all of the AI technology and everything else. And the thing that I proposed was a Department of the Future, and laid out what that needed to look like. And the point of this was to be non-partisan. So longer term appointments, so that regardless of who's in office, we have some stability. The amount of sheer and just utter uncertainty when it comes to policy is making it just really difficult to conduct business in the U.S. Businesses have to, the CapEx allocations, you have to make longer term plans. You can't just allocate a bunch of money or change your workforce overnight. So this continual back and forth, depending on who's in office, we're going to keep this act, we're going to shelve the act, we're going to incentivize this, we're going to sanction that, or whatever it might be. We cannot, as a nation, get ahead if we can't just give it like a decade. You know what I mean? Anyhow, there's just no alignment, and nothing makes me crazier because.
Is that because the stock market focuses on quarterly results?
Yeah,
what's giving us such short-sightedness?
Well, that's part of it. If you're a publicly traded company and as volatile as things have been over the past couple of years, the planning really has gone from a couple of years down to a couple of quarters or the next quarter. But this is about policy uncertainty. And it's absolutely unconscionable that we can't at least align on what policies for tech or longer term plans for tech are going to be. This is
Do you think other countries are better at this, or is this
Of course they are.
Yeah.
And actually, some of our biggest adversaries are very good at this, namely China. I mean, for God's sake, they publish their long-term plans every 5 years.
Well, it's a planned economy, right? They have to.
And you can argue that doesn't work for many reasons and everything else. But, it's a tough time to be a leader in any business right now, that the operational challenges are worse than I've seen in in 20 years. And part of it has to do with technology becoming so politicized and a lack of planning on behalf of our US government for what our critical technologies are going to be and what it is that we need to do. Everybody has whiplash. And it's a little bit like we're creating like exhaust, and we're just frittering away. Like I'm going to use a bike analogy that nobody's going to get, but I'm going to use it anyways. If you're riding a bike and you're putting down watts, you want to be as efficient as possible. You want every pedal stroke, every single thing that you're doing to contribute to producing watts so that you can go faster and farther. What we're doing in the United States by not being aligned is the equivalent of riding with one pedal clipped in and one not. And we're just burning. We're just like creating watts exhaustion.
One leg sticking out, waving
Basically,
around, and the other one on the pedal, and your hands whirling in them. Yes, that's pretty much our political system. But that's democracy, right?
Stupid.
That's how a democracy works. Of course, a planned economy is going to have a unified vision. Not always successfully. Tens of millions died in a famine in 1960.
I agree, but it doesn't we don't have to go sort of it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I don't think we have to be a completely planned economy. I think having a
little planning would be good.
And being able to stick to that plan because it's in the best interest of our economy is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I think something here that makes it really hard, though, and it's not just because this is like my hobby horse, but I genuinely, in this case, I think it's a real problem when lawmakers it's more than holding tech accountable. They like having them as a scapegoat to blame society's problems on. And when you have that from the left and the right for different reasons, sometimes also the same reasons, I feel like it's just hard to show those companies that they're going to be treated fairly or that they're going to be treated with logic and reason rather than how dare you do anything. And I've talked to certain lawmakers who are surprised. They're like, hey, this tech company doesn't want to work with us on AI. We can't figure out why. And I'm like, because you've been yelling at them for years about other stuff and not in good faith trying to work with them. Because there are some good faith efforts too, but there's also some we don't really care what the truth is here. It's sexy to yell at tech for society's problems. And not saying we shouldn't solve for the problems where they are, for sure. But when it's like you like the camera time for getting in front of the camera and yelling at big tech CEOs and that's an end in itself, I think it makes it hard to get those same people to the table in constructive ways beyond them advocating for regulatory capture of their future competitors and stuff like that. I think it's just a really and lawmakers don't stand up enough against that, which bothers me too, that I think it's just kind of the opposite of what we should see in a lot of cases. So now with AI coming, and we need to figure out the right privacy regulations and the right where do we need more regulation and where do we need sandboxes or other experiments. I just don't think we're having the productive conversation needed after years of let me just get in front of the camera yelling about tech and that's the thing that matters most, Yeah.
Well, I wonder if this is a side effect of our partisan kind of, fault lines in our, because then everything does become performative. They're the bad guys. They're the bad guys. Having an election every 4 years like this does not help stability. Far from planning, it feels as if we're just like a chicken with its head cut off. We're not even planning. What are you talking about? We're not even an effective legislature. We cannot effectively legislate, let alone plan. Planning requires a certain amount of openness and unity. We certainly don't have that. I want to take a little break. We come back and talk a little bit more as we wrap things up. This is our final ad break. You're watching This Week in Tech, the politics edition, because we're all kind of thinking about what's going to happen on Tuesday. Plenty of people listening to the show already know. And I don't think they're laughing at us. I doubt that. I don't know how they're feeling, but if I could look into the future, I would. I'd love to know. Our show today brought to you by, now this is something that gives you some certainty. The Thinkst Canary. Here's the problem. When it comes to security, a lot of people say, well, I've got perimeter security. Nobody's going to get into our network. We're not worried about that, except we know that you should be, because that's how ransomware happens. People get into the network. That's how these exfiltrations, these breaches happen. People get into the network. They have plenty of time to wander around, to look for stuff to steal, to look for stuff to encrypt. In fact, on average, companies don't learn that they've been breached for 91 days. 3 months that your adversaries are wandering your network unnoticed. That's why you need a Thinkst Canary. It's a honeypot that's easy to set up, can be deployed in minutes. And the minute someone accesses your lure files or brute forces your honeypot, your fake internal SSH server, the Thinkst Canary will immediately tell you, hey, you got a problem. There's somebody inside the network. No false alerts. So what is it? It's a little box, looks about the size of an external USB drive, plugs into your network and into the wall. And then you go to the console and you can configure it. There are an infinite number of configuration possibilities. It could be a SCADA device. It could be a Windows server, a Linux server. It could be a SAN. It could be an SSH server. It can be a box with a Christmas tree of services turned on, or just the few that matter. You get to choose, and it's so easy to change. You can move it around. You can change it. The Thinkst Canaries do another great thing. They allow you to create lure files, little files, like they look like PDFs or spreadsheets or document files you could spread all over your network, but they phone home the minute somebody tries to open them. And so you put them around your network, and they're like little tripwires that let you know there's a bad guy loose. Choose a profile for your Thinkst Canary device, register it with the hosted console. You get monitoring and notifications. By the way, any way you want them, text messages, emails. They've got a webhooks support. They've got an API. You get phone calls for all. I mean, whatever you want, the Thinkst Canary will let you know. But when they do let you know there's a problem. Attackers who breached your network, malicious insiders too, let's not forget, and other adversaries, they look around and they see these canaries. They don't see them as tripwires. They see them as something valuable, something they could, oh, look, there's a spreadsheet document that says payroll information. I got to open that. The minute they do, you'll know they're inside the network. That's the Thinkst Canary. It is a brilliant idea. I highly recommend them. Some big companies might have hundreds. Small companies like ours might just have a handful. Let's say you want 5. Visit canary.tools/twit. For $7,500 a year, you get 5 Thinkst Canaries. You can configure them all differently, however you want. You can change them whenever you want. You also get your own hosted console. You get upgrades, support, maintenance. If you use the code TWIT in the How Did You Hear About Us box, you're going to cut 10% off that price, and not just for the first year, but for as long as you use those Thinkst Canaries, for life. And here's the other thing that should reassure you. I think you probably can already see how valuable this might be, but you may be thinking, well, I don't know. I got to try it. Thinkst Canaries, they are so confident that you're going to love this. They offer a 2-month, 60-day money-back guarantee for a full refund. But I have to tell you, in it's almost a decade now that they've been partnering with TWiT advertising the Thinks Canary, not one company has ever asked for their money back. The refund guarantee has never been claimed because it really works. It's great. It's incredible. A honeypot that's easy to configure and does exactly what you need it to do. That's the Thinks Canary. Visit canary.tools/twit. Again, don't forget the offer code TWIT in the How Did You Hear Us About Us box, 10% off for life. Thank you, Thinks. Thank you. We love you guys. I should mention that this uncertainty is even bad for podcast networks because companies who are not spending money on advertising either, they're sitting back. They're saying, well, let's wait and see. Amy, what do you think? Is this going to be, how long is it going to take before things settle down, whatever happens on Tuesday?
Well, first of all, hearing the word canary so many times reminded me of the canary sniffer I used to carry around. It was made by a company. It was you could see everybody's Wi-Fi networks. But
oh
in the early days, God! I thought it was called Canary. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Canary wireless Wi-Fi. Early days.
A Wi-Fi sniffer. Yeah.
I just got this.
You're a little hacker, aren't you?
Well, it's a great way to get information. So this little tool that I just got, so we have a Ubiquity network running at home.
As do I.
And anyhow, Ubiquity has this thing called Wi-Fi Man Wizard for Apple devices, and it allows you to see, like, I was sitting in the airport at Charles de Gaulle in the lounge, and I had some time, and I was like, I wonder who's got what running. So I was able to look at the entire network.
Oh my God.
Look at what every single port, every single thing that everybody was connected to. And a lot of people use their real names. So I used the name of what their phones were called and their networks, and then I plugged that into LinkedIn, and I looked around and
trouble.
Anyways,
holy cow.
I just, downtime. What else am I going to do?
But now you showed something that's hardware. I know there's a Wi-Fi Man app. I could put it on my
I
iPhone.
also have that, but so that works really well on an Android phone. But
not as well
on an
Apple
iPhone,
I know.
But with the device, the attachment, it's like supercharges. You can do some cool stuff. At any rate, it was not built for that. It's built to do the management, but it's me. So anyways,
it's for mapping your Wi-Fi signal, but it just happens that it could be anybody's Wi-Fi signal.
It literally can be. It's super fun. You should see, you can see all kinds of stuff.
You are wild.
Invite me over to your house.
You're
actually me. Invite me near your house. I don't even.
Yeah, you don't even need to be in it. Wow, that's wild.
I
Uncertainty.
don't know.
Are we going to have uncertainty for how long? What's the prognosis?
I think
ask the magic 8 ball?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you the answer. The answer is we're going to be feeling this sort of angst for a while, regardless of who wins, regardless of what the outcome is. This is the sort of new normal, and it's okay to live with uncertainty, but you still have to be willing to make decisions. I don't think that one candidate, if Harris wins or Trump wins, that does not necessarily mean the economy
doesn't change anything. It
doesn't, because ultimately, there's their administration. There's also the direction that Congress moves in. It's like 1,000 different things. So nothing is a fait accompli. However, it's probably it's a good time to get comfortable with uncertainty. And if you need help with that, Zen Buddhism offers a lot of ways for you to contemplate uncertainty and how to sit with that and feel okay.
Maybe that's why I have a little smiley Buddha looking at me the whole time I do these shows. A
friend of mine is a Zen Buddhist priest. I don't know if I've ever told this story before, but he was telling me that the first night when he was an apprentice, he's taken into a room and is sitting. Basically, the very first night on the job learning is to sit with a corpse. So in Japan, much like in Judaism and other religions, when somebody passes
Shiva.
On, you don't want to leave the body. Like there are rituals before the burial. So his job was to sit all night long and perform some of those rites. And you're contemplating your own mortality. Talk about coming face to face with uncertainty. But it is about learning how to let go of control and let some of those feelings
one
subside,
certainty: we are all going to be lying there at some point.
Yeah,
sooner or later.
it is what it is. It is what it is. Right?
That's life.
But the more that you try to exert control, the worse everything gets. So it doesn't mean to disengage. You need to be fully engaged and sort of accept the agency that you have to make the change that you want, while at the same time being okay with uncertainty and not knowing exact outcomes all of the time.
That's what I tell our advertisers. Ride the horse in the direction it's going.
Yeah, this is not a time to step away from advertising.
No,
because...
In fact, there was a boom during COVID because of the uncertainty. The advertisers that stuck with it did very, very well. There was a boom. Yeah.
And if anything, given the craziness in tech, I mean, everybody is seeking out answers for things. And this kind of comes full circle from where we started, but I know that people may not be talking more than they're typing right now, but that will change. Every technology company is working on natural NLU, natural user language. What is the word I'm trying to say?
Natural language. Yeah. So that you can talk to it in a natural way.
Yes, and natural user interfaces.
That's what I made my action button do on my iPhone.
Yeah,
but it's kind of the stuff I get back is kind of.
For right now, but things are changing. Google DeepMind has a new
responses you've been getting. Sometimes conversations or interactions don't quite hit the mark, but I'm here to help however I can. What's been on your mind lately?
I mean, it sounds pretty good.
Actually, that's good.
Sounds pretty good. But the point is, we're in a period of transition, and people will talk more than they type. People tend to listen more than they read.
Right.
And interfaces are changing too. Google DeepMind has some research out where it creates Doom as you're playing it. So it's a user interface that is generated based on you as you're playing. That's not a predefined
the game Doom.
Well, the old, like an emulated old school version of Doom.
Because Doom was on rails. You couldn't. There was no variation in it. So you're saying it
right. So that's right. So
I think gaming could really benefit from AI. I'm really shocked that there isn't more of that.
But the point is that this type of interactive media will grow. So again, going back to advertisers, I think the relationship between advertisers and publishers and media companies has to evolve beyond where it is. But
interesting. Because according to the quarterly results from some of the biggest companies like Google, Meta, and Snap, digital advertising is very healthy right now. Google's advertising revenue up 10% year over year. Partly that's election, but also AI-driven ad tools help boost efficiency, they say. We believe AI will revolutionize every part of the marketing value chain. Philip Schindler, who is the chief business officer. Meta sales increased 19% year over year. Profits ballooned 35%. That's all digital ad sales. Didn't help Meta's stock, but that's another matter. Snap's revenue grew 15% year over year thanks to investments in AI and AR that are driving innovation across Snapchat's advertising platform, according to Evan Spiegel. Reddit's earnings cruised past analyst expectations. Advertising income on Reddit grew 55%. 55% year over year, driving its first ever profitable quarter. Roku earned Roku, you wouldn't think of as an advertising company. They are. They earned more than $1 billion in revenue last quarter, thanks to strong growth in its platform business, which includes advertising. So advertising's up for those companies. It's doing very well. I wish we were doing a little better for podcasting, but that's another matter for another day. Consumer Reports doesn't take advertising. You're golden, Nicholas De Leon. Never has, never will. I love that.
No ads. Is all subscriber funded, and may it continue.
I'm proud to be a subscriber. Very proud to be a subscriber. Nicholas, thank you so much for being here. Look forward to your coffee reviews. I think this will be very interesting.
I don't know when the first ones are going to hit. Like I said, I was just informed maybe 2 weeks ago, so it won't exactly be tomorrow. But in the coming,
takes a while to test a lot of coffee makers. If you need anybody to help you judge or anything, I love coffee. I'll help you. Don't ask this one here. Shoshana Weissmann likes Nescafe, but I'm not going to hold it against you, Shoshana, because you also love sloths. How did you become the chairman of the Sloth Committee?
So about 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago, when I was working for a PAC, they wanted us to use a lot of GIFs, and I was glad because I like the internet. And I ended up just falling in love with sloths. You see sloth GIFs everywhere, and there's this one of a sloth giving a flower to a woman. And for sloths, the flower is like chocolate. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so selfless and sweet. And you just fall in love with them. And they're so cute. And I'm also an associate fellow at the Sloth Institute, where I FOIA the government for sloth-related things. I actually do things for them.
Wait a minute. Is there really a Sloth Institute?
In Costa Rica, yep.
Oh, and you FOIA the Costa Rican government?
No, the U.S. government for sloth imports, because they don't want to release the Limas database, because it basically has like trophies, like elephant trophies and stuff.
Oh, wow.
But it also has sloths, and no one cares about the sloth data. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was like, yeah, you can have the sloth data.
They don't redact sloth names out of the documents or anything like that.
But I did that and created a database of sloth-related inspections across zoos across the U.S.
You really did that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and they were cited in the New York Times citing my data. We still haven't published it yet. They can be a little slow sometimes, honestly, which matches. But they do incredible work. They're really good at sloth protection, and I'm glad I can help them.
Shoshana is a mountaineer who, for fun, climbs 40% grades. You can find her at Senator Shoshana on x.com, and there's lots of links there to her various things. And of course, her work at R Street at rstreet.org, where you've done some really good work, especially on, I really like the age verification stuff you've done. I hope that Congress listens to you. That's all I can say.
They don't usually listen, but sometimes they listen. So
Sometimes. Great to have you. Thank you for being here, Shoshana. And thanks for all you've done for the sloths. I really appreciate it. They're wonderful. They move slowly, but that's okay. Well, they're never in a hurry, are they? No, you shouldn't be. Amy Webb, I shook the magic 8-ball, and it said, the future is today. The future is today. So live life to the fullest right now. Embrace uncertainty.
I think that's a great way to end the show. Yeah. Future is today.
Future is today. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Because the future is the result of the decisions that we make today.
Right. And today was the future yesterday. So in a way, yeah, it's very confusing, but at least I'm not in the same room as a dead body. Thank you so much for being here, Amy Webb, futuretodayinstitute.com. I really appreciate all three of you. Really fun to do a show with you guys, especially in a day where there's not much to talk about, because we got to talk about a lot of other things, which is kind of fun. Go vote, everybody. Your vote matters. Not just, and by the way, so much focus on the presidential election. It makes me feel bad. The local elections are even more important. Those are the people who affect your day-to-day life. So yeah, you may go vote for president, but make sure you do the down ballot voting too. And in some states like California, that is not easy. You might want to start early, do some research. Actually, I was really pleased to see, and I should have made this at one of our stories today, but Perplexity.ai, which is one of my favorite AIs, has an election site now where you can go not only follow the election, but you can enter in your locale, see your ballot, and it collects information from a lot of different sources, nonpartisan information from a lot of different sources. So it helps you vote. So if you haven't yet cast your ballot and you're trying to decide on those initiatives and propositions, not just the top of the ballot, but the lower down parts of the ballot, there is a lot of information on here. And it's good information. You can see the source. It's not an AI generated summary. You can see the source. I think Perplexity's done a great job on this. So that's Perplexity.ai. It's free to use. There's a link to their elections site on there. Do your research, be a smart voter, and don't forget to cast your vote on Tuesday. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We do TWiT every Sunday afternoon, now at 2200 UTC, because finally we're in Standard Time. That's 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern. We stream now live on 8 different platforms, and there are 1,300 people watching us, 600 on X.com alone. We stream for our club members at Discord.com. I have to hold up my fingers because otherwise I'll miss a few. Discord.com, YouTube.com. Oh, that's the wrong finger to let down. YouTube.
Tell us how you really feel about YouTube.
YouTube.com. Very important. The order of the fingering. No, that came out wrong also. YouTube.com, Twitch.tv, Kick, X.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. There, I got them all. So you can always watch us live, but that means you have to be around when we're doing our shows. You can always watch after the fact. We have YouTube channels for all the shows. We have a website, twit.tv, where you can download shows, audio or video. Almost all our shows have video. And you can also, of course, subscribe in your favorite podcast client. That way you get it automatically, so you have it for, your next drive into town or whatever it is you do if you're working at home. Your next walk down the hall. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll see you next time. Another TWiT is in the can. Bye-bye.
This is amazing.
Doing the TWiT.